as you all know, it's a Zoom meeting, like, because we have no choice. And so it'll be as well as we can in a group where we hop around. But it's a Zoom meeting, and maybe we can do a roll call of for our members present, so we know that they're there. So, Laura, you want to do the honors?
Sorry. Sure. Maria,
Here.
Jamie, here. Patrick,
Here.
I'm Leo.
I'm here as well. So we're ready to start. I think the first item on the agenda is an update on the design of Phase B at Arsenal Park. And I know you came in last month, Glenn, and we met about playgrounds, and I guess maybe we have a little more update.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to present again tonight.
I think we have Nick on too. Yeah, there's Nick.
Nick's going to do the presentation. I'm just kind of doing an introduction. Just before we jump into Phase B, I submitted a update on Phase A construction, so you should have that. If there's any questions about that, feel free to jump in after our short presentation on the Phase B also. Like you said, about 6 weeks ago, a few weeks ago, we had an internal design charrette with some of our landscape architects. I asked 3 of them to come up with ideas for the playground, both play areas, but primarily the large playground that we're replacing. They came up with 3 ideas. Then we had a meeting with town administration. Leo was on that in that presentation, and everybody kind of picked and chose some of the things they liked best about the different options we came up with. And tonight we're here to present a conceptual design for where we think we'd like to go with this, based on comments and approval from you to keep moving forward in the direction that we have. So with that, I will turn it over to Nick and let him kind of walk you through the plan that we have right now, and then I'll stay on for questions.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. Everyone, let me know when you can see my screen.
We got it.
Yes, we see
it. Okay, great. So the 2 areas I'm going to talk about here are the main playground area over in the northwest corner of the site. We did a bit of a internal design charrette, as Leo was saying, came up with 3 concepts. We presented them, and it seemed like there was everyone kind of liked a little bit of one or the other. So the concept that I'm going to show you that we've landed on is a kind of second phase concept, a more refined version, takes a little bit of all of those playground concepts. And then after that, we'll talk a little bit about what we're calling the naturalized play area or adventure playground located in the southern portion of the site. And so this is, I think, fresh for everyone's eyes. So this will be the first time we've presented a version of that. I know Glenn was out in the field, kind of taking a look at the site, coming up with some ideas to see what we could do in that area. It's a kind of a fun spot. And I zoomed in, so my down button's not going to work to switch. Here we go. Okay, so the main playground area. What we're looking to do here is create a diverse play area, not just with the equipment and the age groups, but also with the topography. So we're looking to take a relatively flat site and get a little bit of elevation, play off of the theme that we've come up with, which is a bit of a naturalized theme playing off of the Charles River. And provide a bit of separation between the age groups, but also have it be fluid enough so that we're not necessarily saying that, this is for the younger 3 to 5 and this is for the 5 to 7. So you'll see that the elements aren't necessarily in each area relegated to that specific age group. There's some fluidity in that respect. So I think it's best to start on the northwest corner of the site where our central path starts. And we're envisioning it to be a rubberized port in place safety surfacing playing off of that river theme, maybe a couple different tones of blue. And that path winds you through the site in this circuitous motion here and brings you down to the southeast corner, kind of closer to where we envision the main entrance from the parking lot and the rest of the park to be. As you're moving along this playground, you'll notice that we've located a couple swings and a zip line piece of equipment in this area. And this is the only area where we have the swings. So we would envision that all age groups would be playing in this northeast corner. And as you move through the site, you're kind of curving around this low berm. And what this low berm, if you look in this area here, I know this might be a little difficult for everyone to see on the screen, but what we're envisioning this low berm to do is to kind of contain a sand area, which is more of a tot lot theme, with some fun boat and digging equipment in there, as well as some low tunnels that the kids could crawl through to get you from one side of the path to the other. So that really contains the kind of the tot lot, what we're envisioning to be the tot lot portion of the playground. As you move around just south of that, we have a little bit of a more naturalized area that's focused on a bit of this challenging kind of exercise, impromptu play equipment. It kind of has some climbing areas, some swing areas, some ropes that you have to climb through. So that's really intended to be more of a challenging kind of athletic play piece of equipment. As you wind through, we cross what was the main 10-foot path that kind of bisected the playground previously. So we've narrowed that up a little bit. It's still a pathway that allows you to move from the north to the south. It's just no longer a central pathway, because what we're envisioning is that people are really going to want to be entering the site from this southeast corner, but they can still do so from the north west or the northeast corner here to access the playground from above. So as you cross over this path, we've provided a much larger, and let me see if I can minimize this here. We've provided a much larger berm. The smaller berm was topping out at about 4 feet. So what you see in this image over here to the left, that's about what you could expect it to look like and proportionally built in the field. This larger berm actually gets you up to about 8 feet tall. This gives us a lot of opportunity to provide some of that verticality that I was talking about. So you can see over here to the right, what we have is an example that a little bit of inspiration. This is actually probably a bit taller than 8 feet, but it's pretty close. And we've provided a ramp feature that will get you up to the top of this berm and a large flat area that's probably about 35, 40 feet long. Along this berm, as there's a gradation as you increase the slope, the elevation of the berm. We're picturing handholds like you would expect on a climbing wall, some fun features like these extruded balls, just challenging ways for kids to be running up to the top of the slope. And this is also a very active area. So while there is a fairly uniform pitched pathway or ramp to get you up to the top, there are also these other options to climb up to the top. We've also envisioned something like a rope feature to be able to pull yourself up in the steepest area. So once we get to the top, there's a good opportunity to have a fairly steep slide. What we're showing here is a nice wide version. 2 kids could go down at once, or it could just be a single person slide, but it's a quick run, but it's a fun steep slide. To get you back down, if you want to, you can either go back the way you came, or we have another scramble area at the edge of the berm here. This would be another version of some type of challenging handhold to be able to scramble up to the top of the berm. So what we're envisioning for materials for both of these berms is actually more of a naturalized grass, synthetic grass, like you're seeing over here in this image in the left. There is an option to do the rubberized safety surfacing. However, that is probably going to be significantly more expensive. And the grass theme just kind of seems to play off of a bit of this natural play river theme with the embankments that we're basing this playground off of. In order to cut down on costs, and I think also improve the aesthetic quality of the design, we've planted the back of the berm. It's going to kind of give you this wraparound planted ornamental tree and shrub edge that contains the playground area as well. So you won't be able to run down the back of this berm out of the view of the seating areas where parents will be sitting. In this lower corner, we have, and I know this came recommended from Rachel. I know she has some family members. She said that when she goes to the playground, that these spinning kind of merry-go-round style spinning elements are the magnet on the playground. You can't. It seems to be the most popular item. So we have the space for it. We already have the rubberized safety surfacing. It seems like a great location to kind of play off of this circular theme where we're kind of winding down the end of this path. I think I'll continue across here where we're envisioning a little bit more of a naturalized adventure play. You can get these prefabricated stone elements. They're not stone, but they're cast elements that look like stone. So options for more naturalized climbing, arches that you can run through, some impromptu play on some net elements. And then finally, a couple more, rotational pieces of play equipment, probably geared more towards the younger age groups here. I would also say that we're showing what we're envisioning as a play for individual specific play equipment to go in all these areas. I think all of that is fairly fluid at this point. Nothing's set in stone. It's just to try to get an idea of what we envision fitting in this space. And this concept's really about the space and the way that we're arranging all these different elements. And that brings me to the central piece of play equipment. So again, if you hate the central piece of play equipment, our ears are open for other options. I think it's important to come to a consensus since this will likely be the most expensive piece of equipment on the site. What we're envisioning is a way to provide a lot of elevation here, and these rope climbing central structures provide that. They also provide it in a fairly cost-effective way, as opposed to some of the structures where you're seeing a lot more of the extruded plastic steel elements. So right now we're showing a central pyramidal rope structure with a bit of a crow's nest, tree house, whatever you want to call it, feature at the top, and another longer, more narrow curving slide. I would also like to point out that this is kind of functioning as the island in the middle of the river. If we're talking about the theme, there are some options for the surfacing around this area. We'll most likely need to have rubberized safety surfacing under the main piece of equipment, but there's opportunities to maybe have this outer ring be a different surfacing material. We've also integrated some planting beds to get some trees, some more natural elements. They're kind of serving as a, part of a riverbank theme, and also kind of plays off this whole nature play theme that we're, trying to string throughout this entire concept. We've maintained the picnic area that is located along the southern edge of the playground. It's just a great vantage point, and because it's in the drip line of two very large mature trees, it would make sense to utilize what's already paved in that area and just provide those 3 picnic tables, maybe update the furnishings, but it's a great vantage point, especially for reservations from what we've heard there for like birthday parties on the playground that are so popular. We've also added an extra seating area. This area is intended to be on some kind of either a deck or a platform area so that you have a little bit of elevation to look over the playground. But also what we're looking at right now is either an ad alternate, or if it seems to be popular, a feature of this main playground design, and that is relocating the splash park. Currently, the splash park is located to the, just for everyone who's not immediately familiar, it's located slightly to the south of the playground. It's a bit disjointed from the other play area. So there still is an option to take the existing splash pad and either expand it, just provide a new fixture, whatever we end up doing. It could end up staying in this area, but it will be slightly separated from the rest of the play area. So what I'm trying to show here is an option for including that with the rest of the central playground design. The river theme, this is just an option for what we envision. The river theme could kind of dump the river out into this swirling area where we can have some interesting features printed on the ground to kind of play off that natural river theme, and a variety of fixtures. It would also provide a great area to have this kind of dual-sided deck seating area be utilized by parents to keep their eyes on kids who are using the splash pad area.
Can I just jump in and say a couple things on that, Nick?
Yeah, sure. Yep.
So, one of the things we thought about was, right now we're looking at just replacing the fixtures of the other spray park, but we came up with a design that even if you don't put this spray park in here, we came up with a design where the spray park fits within the design of the overall playground, and this could end up being being done anytime in the future as the final kind of piece to the playground. So that's one point. And then with the berming, when we put, just like we did over at Phase A, we're going to have a lot of material that comes out. We're looking at putting in another infiltration system to take all the parking lot and infiltrate the stormwater from the parking lot and some of the other paved areas. We're going to be taking a lot of material out for the excavation. We don't want to take material from Arsenal Park off site. So we'd be building up this berm here and then adding 2 or 3 feet of imported clean fill on top of it to kind of create this berm. So this kind of helps us out with that also, because otherwise we're looking at where we're going to move the material that comes out from that excavation. So, but my main point is that spray park isn't something that necessarily has to be part of the project, knowing we have to be looking at all the cost estimating that's going to be coming, and the original plan was just to replace the fixtures at the existing spray park. So you have something that can go in the future that fits with the design here. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Glenn. Yeah, and that's a great point. And I think that reiterates the fact that what we're looking to create is as dynamic of a space as possible, with the understanding that when the cost estimate comes in, some elements might need to be cut or downsized, but in the end, a lot of what we envision to be the uniqueness and the attraction to this park is going to be the landform, and that seems to be a very cost-effective way to create this kind of whimsical landscape that whether or not you have programmed equipment is going to be a lot of fun to move through for children of all ages. So as I said, fluid in all of these different elements, but the core of the landform and the flow of the site is what we want to nail down here. And I don't know if we want to do comments on this site while it's fresh in everyone's minds and then move to the next site, or do you want to just go through them all and then do that after?
Why don't we go through it all and then we'll go back, because
Okay.
we want to get you don't want to drag it on too long, but yeah.
Okay.
Let's go.
Great.
Sorry, I just want to point out, I answered my phone, but that's because it was Charlie, our last member, trying to locate the Zoom link. So he should be joining us in a second.
Okay. Would you like me to hold on for a second then?
No, keep going.
Okay.
Nick, do you want to talk about the picnic area?
Oh, yeah, Rachel, thank you.
Oh,
Yep, and that's excellent catch. You're going to notice that what we're showing right now,
oh,
where we were showing the existing, and this is just an option. We just want to, because there's an existing concrete pad in this upper, northeast portion of the playground. That's where we were looking at providing the composting toilet restroom facility. One option would be to relocate that facility to another portion of the site. And we can show you where we had in mind and provide a bit more shaded picnic seating if it's desirable, or just relocate the restroom and not provide the shaded seating. But this is a great location that's kind of off to the side where you could have a nice shelter, some nice shaded seating kind of off to the side of the playground area, and a good location to relocate the restroom if it's desired. We're already looking at doing, as Glenn said, a lot of excavation for a subsurface storage area, and where that's most likely going to be located is in this portion of the field. A good location for a restroom might be somewhere along this edge of the path where it's more accessible from the parking lot, it's more visible for people who are using the field facility, and it's still just as accessible for people who are using the playground because it is just located on a concrete pad. It might be worth looking at relocating that, since with the landform and what we're proposing for this playground option, it might be a pretty obscure location where people who don't know that it's there won't necessarily know that it's there for them to use.
Nick, can I just make one comment?
Sure.
I asked you to wait till the end, and I'm going to make one. So,
Okay.
so I spoke with Bob DeRico, DPW, and he really said to me, this was after our call, why on earth are we using compost toilets when there's a sanitary line not far away?
Right.
And we should just put in regular toilets, and because there are sanitary, and basically the same thing with regard to the splash park. There is a sanitary line not far away. We should hook it up and do it right. So,
And it's actually located, I believe, right in this area.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't. I broke my rule. So,
Okay.
go ahead.
Well, no, that's good information. So if that is the fact, then we're going to want to minimize the new sanitary sewer lines. So that would be another benefit to relocating the restroom facility to a location a little bit more central. That's just the thought that we had.
Yep.
Okay, so let's move now to the former amphitheater area, the naturalized adventure play area. So what we have here is and here I wanted to show you as it was designed, and these are the original plans. We have an amphitheater with about 1 foot offset terraces running down the existing slope of the site. And there's a great section here. We can see how it was built. One can only guess whether or not it was built exactly as it's shown in the details here. But we kind of have a remnant of this amphitheater. And what we're looking to do is repurpose the site as more of an adventure play area, while also minimizing, and this is kind of our thought, is to minimize disturbance to that existing amphitheater. It's really retaining the slope. It's going to be expensive to remove. So how can we utilize that existing amphitheater to create a interesting play space? And what we came up with is maintaining the vast majority of the amphitheater walls, the poured in place concrete walls, and providing some, utilizing that amphitheater as a bit of a play space itself, and also repurposing it with some planting beds. So if you look at the upper left image, there's a little bit of inspiration. That's a bit more formal and it's fully paved. We could be kind of planting these these linear runs here with shrubs, making them a little bit more naturalized with the trees, while maintaining the steps of the amphitheater itself, and providing some strategically paved areas. You can see on the plan here, we're thinking about placing a hardscape option, something that's accessible, so that we're maintaining the bottom 2 rows of the amphitheater as seating. You can move linearly along that, but then also placing some either flagstones or some paved areas, some kind of a more of like a garden path style scramble path to climb up the amphitheater steps through the planted areas. These would be more naturalized and kind of just an implied space where you can climb up the amphitheater through that planted space. There's also possibly a need to create some stairs. So the main reason for placing the stairs would likely be more for parents than for children. The best way to get from the top to the bottom of the slide feature that we're showing is going to be to go pretty far out of the way on the path and get to the top. So providing a better accessible stair option to get to the top and the bottom might be something that's desired. And we could just achieve that by placing a single step at each of the existing 1-foot walls to create 6-foot steps. We're showing mulch here right now, but this would most likely be, it would be a concrete stair with landings at the bottom of each stair. So removing a bit of the amphitheater on the eastern side, there's a great opportunity. We have a natural slope to place a landslide. You can see over here on the right, a lot of fun options, straight, curving. We're showing an option that has a bit of a kink in the middle, but by filling in the top of some of these amphitheater walls, or just removing them entirely, we believe that we can provide a pretty fun landslide run from the top to the bottom of the site. To the right of that, there's another option, more of a naturalized option for scrambling to the top of the slope, kind of more of a trail theme. So you can, if you're hiking, doing like the mountain hiking, you'll notice that a lot of the trail work that they do is using logs with dead men to retain the slope with a naturalized play surface in between. That's kind of what we're showing right now. There might be a need to provide some safety surfacing or something a little bit more permanent once we get a better look at the concept and the actual topography here. But the idea would be to have logs with ropes, log posts with ropes to kind of provide something to pull yourself up as you're scrambling. Just more of a timber form, naturalized play equipment. As you get to the bottom, there's more of that timber form natural play equipment. Right now we're showing a wobble bridge, a balance beam, and these stilts, all intended to be some of that more of that impromptu play in the only flat area that we have on the site. And then finally, some seating wall blocks along the edge. Not necessarily benches, playing off the natural theme, but somewhere for parents to sit and watch. It'll also help to kind of contain a little bit of the slope and the lower portion of the site here. Glenn, Rachel, if you have anything that you want to add that I missed, and if not, then I think we're ready for some questions or comments.
I'm good. It's just that for the amphitheater play area, we're just that a lot, the play equipment down within the amphitheater itself really hasn't changed much from your original meetings way back with Danielle from our office. So,
right.
And I think there was a slide included in that original. Real change here is trying to incorporate some kind of a stairway within the existing amphitheater, adding some trees, and maybe trying to incorporate some additional play value within this with the amphitheater steps themselves.
Thank you. I mean, it looks a lot different. As I said, when I spoke to Bob, he was pretty, he just said, well, why do we have compost toilets when we're very close to sanitary lines? So why just go with a regular bathroom if we could. I don't know how much difference it would be. He said the compost ones really don't work very well. So that was one of his comments to me. And the other one was with regard to the splash park. We had talked about it in our meeting, and I think he was reaffirming that go with the automatic flap valve and tie it into the sanitary as well. You know, the reason not to upgrade it was maintaining status quo in a rather old splash park. So, does any of our board have any comments? Patrick, I see you, so you can go first.
Yes. I love the idea of topography. I think children appreciate that much more than we adults do. And the topography is a lot bigger to them when they're only half our size, less than half our size. I do wonder about the prescription for artificial covering, the berms. The berms are not going to be such attractive places in a natural environment. I know that wear and tear is your concern. You don't want turf to be worn out and the underlying soil to be washed away. But if you take that berm, say the 4-foot berm on the northwestern side of the play area, I'm wondering if there's anything there that's really going to be that vulnerable to children. If they're impelled to cross it at any time and place, it's likely to be different from child to child and from visit to visit, which means I think that you could probably get away with natural turf if you're prepared to maintain it. That's a cost. But we must remember that the cost of the artificial turf is also considerable, and it doesn't last forever either. And it just, I just don't like it. It's going to be hot in the summer in the sun, and it just, I think it's the wrong touch in a natural, otherwise natural area. So I'd like you to think about that anyway. I can see where you have that adventure wall on the southwest side of the big berm. That's steep, and you're also encouraging people to mount it, which is great. In that case, maybe you can think of some synthetic surface. But boy, even making it the color green, I think, is an adulteration of the sense of being in a natural area. Of course, it's semi-natural in Watertown. We don't have anything else. But try to incorporate natural turf if you possibly can, please. The other thing I like about the design is the fact you are using sand. That surprised me because I know I've urged that to be incorporated in play areas in Watertown before, and the health people have always said, no, the cats go there. Well, they may, but there is such a thing as maintenance, and I don't think, the cats have plenty of other places to go in Arsenal Park. Maybe we could encourage some attractive kitty litter areas. We're worried about that. But I do know, I've seen wonderful play areas for little kids using loose sand. Loose sand is so great for them. They can feel their weight in it. They can shape it. They can move things around in it, pour it out of their hands. So if you can possibly keep that, in spite of the health people, please do so.
Yeah. So for the sand, I do know of the concern of outdoor or stray cats using it. It seems to me that might be more of an issue where you have dense residential adjacent land use. And that's not necessarily the case here. It seems to be a lot more mixed commercial condo apartment style housing where you might not see the same density of neighborhood cats. That's just my first thought about that.
Be prepared for some more criticism.
Okay.
It's likely to come.
Okay.
And that may be from DPW, the health department. That's something we're going to have to, if this is kind of the direction we definitely want to go, then there's some other kind of other authorities that need to kind of look at this and make sure that they're on board with some of these materials.
Yeah. And then if I could address the artificial turf, Patrick, I do agree that it's a shame. If we could make these grass berms, then that's I think that would be the preferred alternative. One thing that concerns me is the interface of the berm to the elements that were the play furnishings that we're attaching to them. And once you start to have, you're going to start to see erosion around those elements, around the footings for the slide, around each of these little balls or each of the handholds. And once those start to get exposed, I'd worry that it would be dangerous. As far as though, but those are the high trafficked areas. So we could certainly look into the possibility of reducing artificial materials to the extent practicable here.
Yeah, the rubber surfacing is what you're really, in most play areas, these kinds of berms are surfaced with the rubber plate safety surfacing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, certainly the steep side on the big berm.
Right.
I'm quite prepared to see something synthetic there.
Okay.
For that purpose. But I'm just thinking elsewhere, the kids are going to probably wander if you're not focusing their activity in particularly steep area. They are likely to apply their impact rather universally over it.
Can you zoom in, Nick? Oh, I'm sorry. Can you zoom in, Nick, to the actual little berm picture there? Because, I really don't know how that would be, how that could be naturalized without really just wearing away. But can you get any closer to it?
Rachel, were we designed at 1:1 here?
A little less than 1:1.
A little less than 1:1.
So it's similar to that.
Yeah,
I mean, that really would just turn into a just dirt, and over time with rain and everything, it would just end up washing into the sand area.
Right, that would be difficult. The front face of the berm, and looking at artificial surfacing over the entire large berm would have just been excessive, and that is what prompted us to try to naturalize the entire back of the berm. So
we will get pushback even on the artificial turf fact anyway, because there's a lot of negative perception of artificial turf in town.
Right.
And this is a little different, but we do need to come up. I don't think we can stick with a natural surface on something so small.
Right. And so it's either rubberized safety surfacing or artificial turf. And this is not the crumb rubber artificial turf that there has been so much opposition to, I know. So, and a lot of the opposition has been to the crumb rubber itself. So
it may just be, and it's also the athletic fields.
The athletic fields, right. So it is slightly different, but yes, yeah, I agree.
Well, we do want to make sure it's safe for the kids, off gassing, whatever else from the grass fields.
Right.
That's an issue.
Yeah, I just don't see how a berm that small would be stabilized unless you covered it with some surfacing.
Yeah. Well, look at what we can do, maybe. Patrick, you all set?
Yes.
Thank you. Good comments.
Jamie, you next? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, any comments?
Yeah, so I kind of had the same reaction as Patrick, like that looks really fun. If I was a little kid, I would love that little berm, but just the thought of a big green artificial turf berm just is really off-putting to my adult sensibility, and just knowing, what it feels like to walk into a grass field versus a turf field. It's like totally different. And I recognize this is like a small play area, and a lot of it will be not of natural materials, like there'll be a lot of the rubber surface, but there's just something about it that really kind of, it just seems off in this spot, and I prefer to avoid it. But I don't know what the answer is, because it would just be substituting it with a different type of artificial surface. So, it's hard to say that a rubberized surface would be any dramatically better. But I do wonder if there would be any way to kind of make the whole thing a big tube that had openings on the end. Like maybe that could be a more aesthetically pleasing yet not natural surface. I don't know, just like, I don't know, it's hard to say. I mean, kids might love it even if it's a bunch of fake grass, but my initial reaction to Patrick was similar to Patrick's of like, ooh. I think
Just
on
the little one, right? Just that
yeah,
little one that we're
little
looking
one.
at? Yeah.
I think
Okay.
the bigger one is, you know, makes a lot more sense because it's naturalized on the backside, and then we could do that, you know, rubber that's sort of matching what's going on the interior of the park anyways. So I feel like that could kind of fit better, but the just like this raised hump of artificial grass felt a little, my initial reaction was like, oof. But, you know, I wouldn't say 100% no, because it is tucked away. It is surrounded by other stuff that isn't grass. But yeah, I'd like to think a little bit harder on that if we can.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It could have, I hope, let other people talk.
Oh, and I think the only other question I had was in the lower, the amphitheater area, in the natural play area. Can you describe, I'm not super familiar with like exactly what it looks like right now. Like, is the ground cover currently just those stairs and naturalized? Like, is this a big switch in terms of what the ground cover is right now?
Right now, it's all stone. Between the stairs, it's just a gravelly stone, crushed stone.
Yep.
And what about down lower? Is that?
It's a mixture, gravel, grass mixture.
And then the circle in the middle is a concrete pad. It's like I think it's concrete, isn't it?
It's like a raised stage area.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, so I think my only concern was that it looked like it might have been converting an area that's sort of become naturalized over time to something less naturalized. So, but that may be false because I just haven't taken a good look at it. So I think my comment would be to the extent that you can keep the, you know, the surfaces naturalized or renaturalize them to make it feel a little bit like a forest floor that they're playing in. I think that would be really nice. And especially since I think that is in the riverfront area. So to the extent we can mix play and habitat, all the better to try and get some of that riverfront benefit back.
Right. Right. And so to the extent that we can do that, I agree. One thing is with the features at the bottom, we are going to need to have a safety surfacing at that 6-foot radius around all sides. So that's why we started looking at the most natural surface we could put down would be a 5R engineered mulch around.
And that still is considered, you can still use the mulch surfacing as a safety surfacing.
Right. Yeah. And so there's, and as Glenn said, you know, it's a bit of like a gravel eroded mix in the amphitheater in between the walls. So we do think that we can naturalize that further and provide, you know, some good native plant communities, improve the tree canopy in this area.
Yeah, I don't think we should be paving those lower. I don't think we should be adding kind of the hard surface in the lower stairs there.
Okay.
I think keeping it more natural and try to introduce more plant materials in between the stairs is a good idea.
Yeah,
and,
we could.
We're showing the trees, but maybe even expanding that some.
So we could extend the scramble all the way to the bottom.
Jamie, anything else?
No, that's it.
Thank
Maria. I can't see anybody, so I'm just calling out next.
No
Maria.
problem. Thanks, Leo. I think you guys did a great job. I really love the river theme. I like the idea of the 2 play areas for younger and middle-aged kids to not be too far away, because if you're a parent and you have different age group kids, it's nice to have them more clustered together. So I like that. I like the river theme. So the blue area would be like a blue colorized rubberized material, right? Like a
Right. So for while While the berms aren't necessarily equipment, quote unquote, they are play, vertical play structures. So you're going to need that 6-foot fall protection on all sides. So what we're providing here is the pathway is becoming the rubberized safety surface. It's a minimum of 6 feet or wider on the edges of the berm, which gives you that protection that you need on that forward face.
No, that's all fine.
yeah.
Kids are rough, so
Yeah, right.
Kids run even when you don't want them to run. And, I think that rubberized is fine. But now, so I don't have as big a concern about that berm being artificial turf, but I do, and the reason is because I think it's nice that you tried to balance that you have excavation you have to do for important stormwater work, and you need to sort of minimize how much that is going to cost the town because of the nature of the site. And I think it was a creative use there. I do just have a couple of questions though. Is the scale exactly right? Like that in the northwest play area where the sand is and the boat structure, is that berm really that wide? Is that how much space it takes up that would be artificial there?
Yeah. So to get the elevation, so one thing we can do, Rachel said, it's not quite 1-to-1. And if we look at this image, this is maybe even steeper than 1-to-1. So what we could do is, go ahead.
Nick,
Yep.
just if I can cut in. Yeah. So how I envisioned this year was to have kind of a flat area on top. That was good for running. But one thing I was going to say, if we want to shrink this berm, if that's a concern with all the artificial turf, we could, like this picture on the left-hand side there, instead of having a flat area on top, we could just keep it rounded, which would just make the berm thinner and kind of do exactly what is shown in that picture.
Yeah, what's shown in that photo seems reasonable to me, and I really think it would need to be something more sturdy than grass, just by the sheer force of rain and wind, let alone kids. I mean, it will be destroyed probably within a year if it wasn't something man-made. So I'm less concerned about it, but I'm a little more concerned about the scale of it shown there, because that does sort of look like a lot, and it should fit in with the naturalized aspects of the park, balancing that this is a play area, and play areas demand tougher surfaces by their nature. And then I'm not an expert on this, but I don't love the central piece of equipment. But I defer to others, but I'm going to just throw an idea out there because I love the river theme so much. I wonder if you could do like something that has climbing ropes that you have, but like up to a deck, and have like a telescope there, and make it like so that the kids can like pretend they're on a boat in the middle of a river, and they could like pretend that they can see out to the real river and look for pirates or something.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah, and this is why I wanted to stress that while we're showing equipment right now, this stuff is all going to be flexible. So that's a great idea. And we can
still
we
having
can take a
ropes,
look
but
at-
maybe not all ropes, and maybe a flat decking area that kind of makes them feel like they're empowered and looking for, I don't know, jewels and treasure.
That would be much more imaginative. That's a great idea. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then I like the repurposing of the amphitheater. Looks really good. That's about it. I like it. Thank you.
Charlie joined us. Charlie, do you have any comments? Charlie, you there? Laurel, can you see him?
No, I am not mute now. So
Okay.
I just want to say I like what you're doing with the amphitheater. I think it's a really nice space, and it's too bad that hasn't been used more. So I hope what you're doing works. Otherwise, it all looks good to me.
Thank you. I just have a couple. I'm with Patrick. I think the only way to make that kitty berm, it would be to make it wider, and that way you could reduce the slopes and maybe make it grass, but that would be making it a lot wider to make it feasible with grass, because your slopes would have to be like 2-to-1, 1-to-3, 3-to-1, something like that, which
Right.
really increases that tunnel length quite a bit. But if it looks like the photo, that doesn't look very wide and it isn't that bad. It just looks on the plan view like it's huge. So I don't know if, like, I think Marie asked if it was to scale, and it just doesn't look to scale to me, but.
If we narrowed it down more like you're seeing in that picture, is that?
Well, that's what you said. I think Maria asked if it was to scale from the
Yeah.
photo, and it looks on the plan like it's like 4 times bigger than the photo.
So yeah, right now what we're showing doesn't match the photo. Right now
Okay.
what we're showing is steep slopes on the side and then a flat area
Okay,
on top.
Yeah, okay.
But we could easily shrink it down, like thin it out and make it look more like the photo, which would reduce
And that
the
would
need for the turf.
That would reduce 4 or 5 feet, Rachel. So probably, so you'd be looking at a third to half of that width. Sorry, 2/3 to a half of that width.
Because to me, the only way to make it grass would be to make it wider.
Right.
And I guess if we don't have the room to make it wider, so.
That would have to take up the sand
Yeah.
space.
I like the sand space. I
Okay.
like the sand.
Yeah, and I just, as soon as you introduce a natural grass, even if it was a flat area of natural grass, with the number of kids that are going to be here running around, it would not stay grass.
I know, but I guess I'm just trying to, we are in a park.
Yeah, I know.
A natural park. I'm trying to we are the Conservation Commission, so I'm trying to balance these things,
But how much other acres are going to remain naturalized? So we
Well,
need
no,
to,
I agree. I know. I like the foam pads that we're going to use. I mean, that's every playground has that stuff. It's a safety issue now, right?
Mhm,
Yep.
right.
So Maria, were you talking about the big play structure in the middle?
yes.
Okay. All right. So you guys comments on that. I do like the natural areas. You have a picture over on the left of these stakes up at an angle.
Yeah.
My grandson we were over and visited them when they were in Europe, and they have these in the parks over there, and they're a little closer together. So they sort of had a walk behind him. He loved it. He just went back and forth. And it was actually on a log. So it was a log, and there was spikes coming out of the log, and they just bounced between it. And it was like he had a ball. He wouldn't leave. Come on, let's go. We're gonna go.
Right. And it's similar to this
Really
kind of
enjoyed that
equipment.
a lot.
Yeah.
So,
It's a challenge, and it's imaginative the way that you can play with these things, even though they look fairly simple.
Yeah, and so I do like the naturalized area a lot. I mean, I think I like the slide coming down the hill, working out the stairs and things like that. I think it's getting there. I think it's getting there. And again, as I said, the bathroom, I think if we look into a real bathroom, I don't know how much more that would cost. I mean, we got to buy the composting one, so there's a plus minus anyway. But I think for maintenance purpose in the long run, I think that's where Bob was coming from. By the time they maintain the composting toilet, just put it right into the sanitary. So if it's feasible to look at where the sanitary lines are, that might be a plus.
Okay.
And again, with the same with regard to the new splash area, if that's close to the sanitary line, I don't know how far away the other one is. I mean, the other one's further to the south, the old one.
Mhm.
But if we're
Yeah,
gonna,
we still have to confirm exactly where that could be tied into,
Yeah.
and we have to, the size of that line
I
is.
think Bob was talking with Jay, and he thought it was fairly close. So, and I like the new. I know Peter will pop on this. I did like the isolated area off on the bush tree for a picnic area. I thought that was a nice ad.
The northern one here.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of nice. It gives the people, they can go away from the play area and have a break.
Right. And whether or not it has a structure, I mean, the structure will have a cost associated to it, and it won't be necessarily a minor cost.
A cover
So,
would be
yeah.
a cover would be nice. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if it has to be a fancy cover, but a cover.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what
Or
we're gonna have
both.
to do when we, as we get now to we're getting close to kind of pulling together 30% and starting to do some planning level estimates. I think as we start to see some of these pieces, we can provide a price, we can provide
Yeah.
something if we went with a normal restroom and like that pavilion, I think, and pieces that can easily be put out for the future based on the overall
Correct.
estimates.
We
that-
could, but you could put the tables in and maybe I don't know. We'll think. That's what we'll worry about. Yeah, I wasn't thinking an exotic pavilion. I was thinking maybe it's just a cover. So we could make it. And so I think that would be nice. I guess I'll open it up to questions. I know we have people. I just can't see them all. So And I don't, so Laurel, are you in control? Who's in control? So if somebody asks a question, Laurel, are you seeing raise the hand?
Yeah, well, I can just call on people, like I
Okay,
know
well,
Steve
if somebody-
Pete
If somebody's waving at you, let
Santola
'em-
has his,
if
yeah,
somebody's
Pete has his hand waved.
Who has?
Thank you. Me. Hi, everybody. Hope everybody, Pete Santor, Recreation resident. Thank you, everybody. Nice job. Hopefully, everybody had a nice Thanksgiving and their family is safe. And best of luck to continue success. I just had, I did send Laurel and Steve and Gideon one of my lists. Steve hates it, but that's at some point if you kind of just review it. Just a few things that I wanted to comment that I wanted to focus on that you guys could kind of talk about. I haven't heard anything about any type of, and I'll just go through a few things. I haven't heard any type of comment on inclusion and special needs.
Okay.
So I
Yep.
think that's important. I think the spray pad before the planning and development got involved, Recreation had in their capital to redo the splash pad. I've been talking to O'Brien and Sons and sending out some emails to Jay and Bob and Glenn, and maybe Glenn, you could comment because there's some different options. But I really think this is an opportunity to expand the spray pad, and even at a different location near the open lawn. So that, I think that would be a big hit for everybody, and especially with your water theme. I think it would go in. I like the rubber surfacing. I'm not going to get into the sand. I like playing in sand when I was younger. The health department might have something to do with that. And I think, I'm in line with you, the real bathroom. I never liked the fake, I call it a fake bathroom. I think it's important to have a real bathroom. You can have a lot of use over there, and, even with a little bit of those little baby changer things and so on and so forth. I think that would be helpful over here because I think this area will be really busy. And then it's not really here, but as you know, the Watertown High School uses this for cross country. I think, right now we have kind of like a beat up storage unit. I think maybe adding some type of storage unit, but that's not really affiliated to this. So that's about it. I think there's some great ideas here. There's a lot of details, things, and so on and so forth. But I really think we got to worry about making sure that some of these amenities are inclusive, that the facility is inclusive, and our special needs population can have accessibility to this. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Peter. That's a good comment. That's a real good comment. We should make sure we have the right kind of swings and whatever else so that people with disabilities can access all these things.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great comment. Thanks, Peter.
Peter, I have one question. We talked, well, I don't know if you were in the meeting last time. We talked about where the kids run the cross country. And we weren't sure whether they came up in this section of the park when they do the cross country run.
They do
We
it.
know
We
the
have that now.
You have it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, all right, okay.
We have the
I
route.
get that
so.
question. Does anybody else have any, Laurel, do you see anybody else waving their hand?
Lisa Feltner.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
Hi, good evening, everyone. A couple of my comments I'm not sure about because the materials aren't online and I'm just trying to, so hopefully you'll post.
This
This
was just an
meeting
informational
online.
meeting, so we didn't get any, we didn't see it until just now either.
Right, so I'm just letting you know that it's, and obviously I'm not deep into the weeds like you guys are. But anyway, my initial reactions are a couple. I think it's great that you've established, a river theme, like people say. I love the sand for that reason, and being in New England, the river, the beach. Beach isn't just the ocean. There's a lot of beachfront on the river and lakes around here, although we don't have that. So I hope that that can be used. I'm not sure if the berms came about because you're talking about stormwater. I guess my general comment about that is avoiding as much artificial materials just in general. Arsenal Park, we think of it as, under care of Conservation Commission. And so the whole feel of it is off-putting to me to see this much large areas. I liked when Jamie mentioned maybe this could be more of a tunnel where it's open on the ends. If you have to have these berms, it's unclear to me if you have to have them. They're really dominant. And I would hope that you could be a little more creative with it so that pretty much all surfaces in the park are usable and not necessarily just structural or protective, so that there could be some hidden surprises. So for example, I think, some of your ideas around the amphitheater are good. I think that could be developed even more along either the forest or river theme, because right now it's not an amphitheater, and it's not quite not an amphitheater of like really integrating it. So I don't know if this becomes like more of a play. Hidden forest is just popping into my head, something that's more imaginative or surprising for the kids to draw them down there, because it's very shady. And I know that it's also loud for traffic, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people think the amphitheater has failed as an amphitheater, and people really aren't including them in parks anymore and in general in complexes, unless it's just, a specific event space. So I like Peter Santola's suggestion on spray pad. I don't know what that looks like, but enlarging water spaces, maybe there's some more water play areas, if it's not concentrated just in one splash pad area. I love, like that you've put a boat in here. I don't know, I imagine many of you have walked along the Perkins Braille Trail, where they have that beautiful boat imaginative space on the lookout on the river there. And I would say that just the last thing in general, if you think of this as like the Conservation Commission park, I'm kind of surprised people would jump onto real toilets, if that's what you call them. And you go to trustees' properties, and I feel like there could be more of a focus on being good stewards of our resources, whether that's composting toilets that have really come a very long way. And I was shocked to see some of them recently in recreation areas that are really super nice. So I don't know if more research needs to be done, or maybe check in with, again, the trustees or other people that have more experience with that. But I fear we're going to lose that sense. We're already going to have a tower looming over and a lot of development and the traffic, that we're really going to kind of lose any sense of some real conservation areas and quiet areas in the park, although I know you're focusing on the playground area here. So I know it's really difficult. I appreciate all your work. You haven't had much public input, and it sounds, I don't know if you said you were having a charrette coming up, or maybe I'm confusing that with another meeting, but hopefully we'll get the word out, and maybe get more input as well on accessibility, or just some of these fun imaginative things that might not cost a lot, whether it's the how much sand, or the type of ropes, or the amphitheater, because hopefully with the cross country team running through here, that they still have that feel somewhat too of this is really a special area, conservation area along the river. And I appreciate everybody's work, because I know we're also going to have more cyclists coming through here as well. So thanks for taking my input here.
Okay.
Yeah, just a couple of points. Yeah, so
Can I just say one thing, Glenn? With
go ahead.
regard to the toilets, it was more of a maintenance issue, is why the DPW brought it up to me. rather than anything else, Lisa. It wasn't trying to be natural or anything. It was just the fact that they could, if it's a regular toilet, they can maintain it better than if it was a composting toilet. So that was from the DPW. And the sanitary line is nearby from what they told me. So only reason brought it up. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, so we had a kind of an internal design charrette, and then with some of the town administration, and as I mentioned, Leah was at that. That's kind of where this was developed from. There has not been a full community presentation on this yet. We're looking to try to move towards 30% design in the next few weeks. So, we would like to advance this. I'm hearing a lot of comments regarding that berm on the left over by the sand. I think we definitely really need to relook at that. But I think maybe we make a few revisions to this, and maybe, Leo, maybe we do. I don't know what the public meeting process on this was going to be. I know we were going to go.
It'll be one of our meetings where we actually provide the package out for the public so they can see it, and then it'll be a public meeting. It'll be a conservation meeting.
That may be a good thing to do then before we take this too much further.
And so you present the drawings so everybody gets to see them before the meeting, and then they can all come and discuss the latest drawings.
Okay.
One other thought. Clint, did you look at any live water features? I know for other park proposals and for my job, I think there's, we saw concepts for these moving water features in playground, kind of like fake rivers that I guess they said the water gets kind of recycled through. But are you familiar with those, or anything like that considered for this site? Especially if there's already a pad there.
Yeah, we were asked not to do anything regarding the water play feature or any other until the very last meeting we had, when we started pulling this design together and realizing that the spray park where it is really just, so it's just separated, and that trying to bring it and include it as part of the overall playground would be a good idea. But it really was not in the scope to do anything other than replace the fixtures at that existing spray park.
No, this is separate from a spray park, just in terms of a feature to incorporate into the playground. So I've seen concepts for other projects where there is this moving kind of river in a playground.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've gone back and in fact, today there was a lot of emails. Peter alluded to it, and I think regarding DPW emails going back and forth because Peter's looking to replace the water play features at Filipello, and we're looking at this one, and the regulations do not allow you, for one, to take any water once it's come in contact with people. You can't take it to the storm drain system anymore. It has to go to the sanitary system, and it's difficult to do that because then you can't take the storm water to the sanitary system. So there's 4 options for any kind of water play. And unfortunately, both at Filipello and here at Arsenal, you've got the issues with the soils. So that's why we can't, at Filipello for the current project with the lights, we've had to find berming, and anything we do out there, we have to keep the soil on site. We have to do the same thing here, which has been an advantage on this with kind of including the berms in this play area. But it's difficult. You could do a recirculating system with a tank. The DPW does not really want to do that. And then you've also got, what do you do with all the material that's taken out for a tank of that size?
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, and it was just too big. So is there anybody else with any comments? So we can move on to our next item.
I guess my only other thought then is it sounds like the topography of that left berm is pretty important, but if it ends up having to get moved, I wonder if kind of big boulder type things would be fun if kids could climb on them, and be kind of like river stones separating the sand area from the other area.
Yeah, there's definitely boulders could be included in those.
Yeah.
Some of these,
we included a smaller version of that here, but those could be expanded.
Yeah, some of the climbing features and things on some of these slopes, we kind of, pulled from the ideas from we went and looked at Lincoln Park. We were asked I don't know, a while ago to go take a look. There was a lot of features at Lincoln Park they liked. And so we tried to include some of that climbing and different spaces, but over there, same thing. They have these different spaces, but they're all unified by surface, the surfacing on the ground and the rubber surfacing colors and materials.
Yep.
Yeah,
They
there's a lot of
blend very
different
well over
places.
there.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Is there any more
Thank you.
questions? If not, we can say thank you to Glenn and move on to next item, if that's okay.
We should, or do we kind of have approval to keep moving in this direction, or do we want to wait and do?
Well, I think based on the comments, I think people were pretty happy with what we had. We addressed the little, that artificial berm maybe in the kitty lot area.
Yeah. Yeah, if I could just sort of summarize from the recurring themes that I'm hearing here in the comments, we want to look at reducing the artificial surfaces as much as possible. It seems that people like the naturalized theme. So if we can include more boulders, planted areas, keep up the Conservation Commission image of the playground as much as possible. Those are immediate changes that we
And
can
more
make.
inclusive.
And
Inclusive,
Peter's comment about the more
play.
inclusive play. Yep, I've got that one starred here. So those are, sounds like those are the three main elements that we need to take a look at.
Yep.
Okay.
And I just wanted, I know Councilor Canellis made a comment about the square seats on the tables. She wanted round ones.
These ones here.
Yeah,
Okay.
she made that comment on phase A, if you recall. I don't know if
Okay.
that got changed, but I saw it, so. All right, well, thank you.
Great. Thank you,
Glenn.
everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
Nick.
you.
Thank you. Who else was
Thank
there? I don't want to miss anybody.
That's
Rachel.
fine, I'm
Bill,
Rachel.
thank you. You're off my screen. I only see 6 people. So,
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you,
you everyone for your
Thank
time.
you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
So our next item is, and I'm sorry it took so long. It was 45 minutes. I thought we could do that in a half hour, but it was the first time we saw those drawings. So thanks for bearing with us. That'll be our new park. You're not too far from your office, so you can.
Looks
Goodbye.
great. I'll have to bring my
Um,
kids to play there.
Yeah, there you go. So
do.
we're going to discuss the notice of intent for 23 Elm Street, and I don't have the official notice, so all I'm going to say is it's for an office building, and it's on Elm Street adjacent to Solon's Brook. Yeah, the brook stream. So if you guys want to present your package, which we all received.
Right, so, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
Yeah,
We can hear you.
Yes.
Great, okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the Conservation Commission, Attorney Steve Winnick for the applicant, Elm Street Owners LLC. We're seeking orders of condition relating to redevelopment of the site at 23-29 Elm Street. With me tonight are the principals of the applicant entity, Andy Mann and Dave Schwartzman, and also our tech team, which consists of our site engineer, Jim Borabak of OHL Engineering, or maybe and OHI Engineering, and our architect, Alan Westman of KSID. Now, by way of a summary of the principal project facts, the site is located on Elm Street off of Arsenal in the east end of town, connecting with our urban neighbors, Boston and Cambridge. It abuts the Watertown Mall immediately to the east along Elm and is adjacent to the new Residence Inn Hotel at the intersection of Arsenal and Elm. And also the Jimmet Health and Fitness Facility at the intersection of Arlington and Arsenal Street. It's in close proximity to the new Arsenal Yards mixed-use redevelopment of the former Arsenal Marketplace on the south side of Arsenal Street, and coincidentally, very close to the first case, the playground that's being proposed there. Now, of significance to this project of major redevelopment, the site is located in the newly created Regional Mixed Use District, known as the RUMD. A principal goal of the RUMD is, quote, to enhance the economic vitality of selected commercial areas through attractive, consistent design. Now, one of these areas and a specific purpose of the RUMD is to assist, promote, and guide the orderly conversion and redevelopment of the Arsenal Street corridor, of which this specific site is a part. Now, consistent with the future thinking and vision of the RUMD for this part of Watertown, the project proposes to raise the existing deteriorated commercial structures and to replace them with a modern, aesthetically designed and efficient 3-story laboratory building, which complies entirely with the town's newly adopted design guidelines and is LEEDs Silver certified. The finished laboratory project will serve as a center of life sciences, medical and biotech, research and development, and with it, Watertown's evolution as an integral part of what I consider Greater Boston's leadership role in these cutting-edge scientific fields. Of critical importance to the Conservation Commission and to us as developers, because we share these concerns, is that although no part of the site contains any protected wetlands, a portion of the site at its northern end is within the 50-foot no-build buffer zone, and the rest of the site is predominantly within the 200-foot riverfront buffer zone. And that's why we're here before you tonight, having filed a notice of intent seeking project approvals that we believe will achieve the policy goals of the Wetlands Protection Act and our local regulations. Because by approving this project, the commission will dramatically reduce the existing degraded conditions, principally impervious surfaces within the 50-foot no-build zone, to almost a de minimis level. It will dramatically improve the rest of the site within the 200-foot riverfront protected zone and significantly improve environmental conditions overall, not only on this site, but also on its environmental impacts on the East End and really Watertown as a whole. Now, I want to emphasize that right before Thanksgiving on November 18, we met in a preliminary meeting with Chairman Martin and Laurel Schwab of Conservation. And Steve Magoon and Gideon Schreiber were part of that, of the Department of Community Development and Planning. Out of that meeting came important feedback about what we could do to try to make this admittedly desirable project less of an issue, specifically and predominantly for the 50-foot no-build zone. And tonight, our tech people will be showing and explaining design changes that we have made to address those important suggestions. We interpreted them really as directives from both departments of how to minimize further any negative conservation impacts in order to win the support of you members of the Conservation Commission. I'm going to let our technical team explain in detail and drill down on these wetland issues that are the focus of tonight's hearing. But I want to summarize briefly the contrast between the current degraded site conditions, specifically as they negatively impact the wetlands and other conservation issues, such as site drainage and what will be achieved by the proposed project to dramatically remedy those conditions. In brief, the existing site structures and impervious pavement now cover almost the entire site, about 93%. So there's no open space, no green space, or wildlife habitat to speak of. Impervious surfaces, blacktop and/or paving, now account for 43,762 square feet of the site's 46,000 square feet. Of that, approximately, or it looks like exactly, 6,283 square feet is within the 50-foot no-build zone. And the bulk of the rest of it is within the 200-foot buffer. Now, the proposed project will reduce impervious surfaces in the 50-foot no-build zone by more than 5,000 square feet, 5,078 square feet to be exact, representing a reduction of almost 81% from the existing conditions. Regarding stormwater management, there currently is none. Stormwater runoff on site from both the structures and the ground simply sheet feed without any treatment or mitigation and discharge to the property to the north, and from there ultimately into the Charles River. The project will fundamentally address these issues that by providing for on-site retention and treatment of almost all stormwater generated on site. Now, I want to introduce to you the project's principals, Andy Mann and Dave Schwartzman, who will explain their own backgrounds and expertise as developers, and also that of their third partner, Johannes Fruhauf, who is a resident of Watertown on Russell Ave, and more importantly for this project, a renowned pioneer in creating and operating life sciences laboratories in the US and abroad. In their commitment to making this an outstanding addition to Watertown, specifically including by its sensitivity to the conservation issues. Andy and Dave in turn will introduce our technical team members for their presentations. And then we would be obliged if you allow us to make our full presentations before taking questions from commission members. We promise to be brief to allow as much time as possible for commission questions, as our goal tonight is not to try to rush this project through, but to get as much direction and feedback as we can, so that if there are other ways to reasonably improve the project from the standpoint of the wetlands, while maintaining its financial and operational feasibility. We certainly ask that the commission be sensitive to that as well. We can consider those suggestions and comments and come back with revised plans. So without further ado, I introduce Andy Mann and Dave Schwartzman.
Thank you, Steve. That was a very succinct summary. So it was also, I just want to confirm, we're proposing a life science, life sciences and biotech facility on the property. So really briefly, myself, I am a Massachusetts resident. I grew up in Massachusetts in a real estate and local business family. I've been in real estate development from the day I graduated college. I immediately went to NYU, got my master's degree in real estate development, and I've been doing it for over 20 years in all facets of real estate. I've been partners with Dave Schwarzman in a brokerage company for over 15 years. And we're very excited to work with Watertown. We've had a very pleasant experience thus far. We've been working on this project for over a year. I'll briefly introduce our other partner, Johannes Furhoff, who couldn't be here tonight, but collectively the three of us round out, I think, a very nice team. We're not a huge company. We're individuals, and we work together on this project. So Johannes is the CEO and founder of BioLabs, which is a national network of biotech co-working spaces. He's also the founder and president of Lab Central, which is the largest co-working space for life science companies in the Boston area. The companies that have come out of Lab Central and BioLabs have raised over $6 billion of venture capital since 2014. So he's truly a pioneer in the life science industry. And when we started to work together, he is a Watertown resident. As Steve said, we were trying to identify what's the right market. And for so many reasons, Watertown is that market, and particularly the east end of Watertown, because a lot of these companies like to be in clusters amongst each other. And as you know, this is certainly emerging as a innovative capital for these companies. And we're just delighted to be working with Watertown and bring this project to you all. So I appreciate all your time tonight, and we look forward to receiving your feedback and working forward to bring this project to fruition. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Andy. My name's David Schwarzman. I'm also one of the principals at Elm Street. Again, thank you for the opportunity to introduce our project. I've also been a Massachusetts resident all my life, growing up in the greater Boston area. graduating from Boston University and, living with my wife and 3 boys also in the area. I've been a partner at TJAC Development based out of Boston. As Andy said, I'm a partner in the Triad Group. We do real estate services also based out of Boston. I also run a management company called SIS Property Management, and we manage space in the greater Boston area, mixed use, educational, retail, and office space. And then also I'm responsible for ZVI Construction and Design Build Contractor, and we're also based out of Brookline, Massachusetts. So I'm a licensed Massachusetts real estate professional and also a licensed construction supervisor. We're really excited to become a member of the Watertown community. As Andy said, it's been a pleasure dealing with Watertown's team, and especially, all the work they've put in to make development possible, during the pandemic, and really how they've given honest feedback and been very open with their time, to help us, to get to this point. Our hope is, and we hope you agree that this is a first-class development, and we'll have real positive impacts on the community and the environment. So without further ado, I'll introduce Jim Borback, who's our civil engineer, and he will take you through some of the technical aspects of the projects.
Thanks very much, David. Good evening, folks. Again, my name is Jim Borback from OHI Engineering. This is the existing conditions plan. The site contains about 46,800 square feet, has about 175 feet of frontage on Elm Street. There are 3 buildings. The one in the rear on the easterly property boundary was built around 1960.
Do you want to share the screen? Are you?
I am screen sharing. Can you see it?
No.
Oh, I can.
I can see it.
Oh, really? What have I done?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. Okay, I'll get there.
I think you can probably keep going because Leo has seen it. So, but just give a shout, Leo, if you still have.
Okay, keep going.
Okay. So there's 3 buildings on the property. The easterly building was built around 1960, and the other 2 buildings were built in the late 70s. It's all surface parking, 52 stalls. There's a combination of underground and overhead utilities. There's a utility overhead line running right here, septic holding tank and pump chamber in the northeast corner that pumps out to Elm Street. Topography, the high point is at the southwest corner and drops about 14 feet to the low point, which is right where I'm circling. The resource areas shown on the plan were from an ORAD issued by the commission back in July of 2019. We have bank and bordering vegetated wetland. There's currently no stormwater treatment on this site. Essentially what happens, with the exception of this small area, is that the stormwater all flows down to this low point and then would discharge untreated and uncontrolled over onto the property to the north and into the resource area. There are no vernal pools on site. We're not located in an ACEC or in a mapped rare species habitat. The property is approximately 93.5% paved. The only pervious area is a thin strip right there, a few feet wide. It's a little bit back here, but 93.5% paved. 40,670 square feet of riverfront. That's about 86.8% of the property. Of the riverfront, 99% would be considered degraded. The only area that would not be, there's a fence line right where my cursor is. So there's a small portion just beyond the fence line we would not consider degraded. And of the degraded area, 96% of that is paved. The nearest pavement to the resource area is right at this location, about 5.2 feet. There's 7,621 square feet inside the 50-foot zone, which is delineated by this line here. It's a combination both of the bank and the BVW. And of that area, just under 6,300 square feet is paved. I'm going to talk about the plans that were submitted for now, and then at the end of the presentation, I'll call up the working plan that Steve Winnick mentioned. The building is 78,000 square feet. It has a triangular front, as you saw from the renderings. The main access is on the south end of the property. It's a 24-foot wide access aisle that provides access to a lower level parking, most of which is under the building in a garage. There are 23 spaces constructed of pervious pavement along the easterly property boundary. We also have a proposed access way on the northwest side of the property, primarily for fire access, which we're obligated to provide. And then we have a interior trash room as opposed to the currently exterior dumpsters and freight elevator, as well as access to a bike room providing 24 bike stalls. Part of the work will be connecting underground utilities out into the utility network in Elm Street. And the DPW site town engineer has requested that we mill and overlay the entire width of the Elm Street across the frontage of the property. That is shown on one of the other drawings that was submitted to you folks. This layout here has 53% coverage by the structure. 75% maximum is the allowable coverage in the zoning district. We're at an overall 74% impervious area. 85% is the maximum allowable in the zoning, and 28% open space, where we're required to provide 20%. Stormwater will be captured and treated and infiltrated in 3 infiltration areas, one in the northeast corner, one in the, northwest corner, one down here in the southwest corner, and then in an area along the easterly property boundary. We're intending to infiltrate stormwater from all impervious surfaces as opposed to the zero infiltration currently on the site. We are allowing the landscaped area along the northerly property boundary to drain naturally down into the wetland. That would just be surface flow off of that only, but all of the other surfaces would be captured, treated, and infiltrated. We'll reduce the overall total impervious surface on the site by about 9,000 square feet and reduce the paved surfaces within the 50-foot zone by about 81%. The nearest setback to the resource area, again, right here, it was 5 feet, and the existing condition will be about 31 feet. So we're pushing this back around 26 feet or so. Basically, this area here, this is the front access from Elm Street. This is a relatively flat area with main access into the building. The driveway drops down into the lower level. And then we're grading up from the current edge of work. So we're not extending work beyond the degraded section of the riverfront up to the building, really to just try to keep down the elevation difference between the two, and for stormwater coverage purposes. Like I mentioned, we have infiltration areas in the northwest, southwest, and easterly sections of the property. This is the proposed landscaping plan. We have a plaza type feel at the main entry that came out of the design review that we went through, where we have installing some street trees and a plaza for the main entrance with some benches. And the intention of the landscaping on the north side of the property is to create a naturalized, minimally maintained area with good wildlife habitat and value. The trees that we're proposing are red maples, tamarack, white spruce, and junipers. Those are proposed along the wall just to break down its massing. Those all provide good shelter, nesting, food for both birds and mammals. Shrubs include junipers, dogwood, winterberry, ninebark, and blueberry, again, all providing good food sources for pollinators, berries for birds, good wildlife habitat value there. And then any other area that's over, you can see this area would be a conservation seed mix. It's a mixture of different bunch grasses and wildflowers. It's not intended to be maintained, and that would provide good value both for small mammals and insects. Just as sort of a summary of some of the environmental improvements we're making, we're reducing impervious areas by 19%, reducing the impervious area in the 50-foot zone by about 81%. We believe we're substantially improving the stormwater quality by reducing the asphalt paved area. That area would collect, salt, sediment, perhaps oil and grease off the cars. Now, when we have most of the parking in the garage, that would all get collected in its own system, be run through a oil and water separator, an MDC trap, and then discharged to sewer. We'll mitigate, treat, and infiltrate all stormwater from impervious surfaces. We'll eliminate the exterior dumpsters, increase the setback to the riverbank from the paved areas I mentioned, and then increase and improve the wildlife shelter, nesting, and food value. So let me see if I think I'm going to have to exit out of that. So as Steve mentioned, we had a meeting just before Thanksgiving with Leo and Steve Magoon, Laurel, and the concerns were brought up to us about doing what we could to reduce work inside the 50-foot zone more than we had. And so this is our working plan. It is in progress. But what we've done is in this zoning district, we're allowed to go to a 0 lot line. So we've pushed the building south right up to the lot line. We've reduced both the length of the emergency access. Both of those issues are things that we will require and have spoken with Chief Allen about. He had given us an initial okay on the 0 lot line. And then we've also reduced both the length and width of this area that's providing for the trash room and freight elevators. And we've done that through some architectural changes that Alan Westman has been working on. So with this plan, we go from around 1,200 square feet of impervious area inside the 50-foot zone to just over about 330 feet. It's this piece right there. We would propose this as pervious pavers, and then a retaining wall. We could put some curvilinear aspects to that to make it look more natural. So those are the things we're working on to try to, like I said, to try to reduce those impacts even further. And I guess at this time, we'll open it up back to you folks if you had questions, comments, or suggestions on other things we might should look at. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alan?
You all set with your presentation?
No, is Alan Westman here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, so you're up, Alan.
Okay, thank you. I think Jim covered, actually, to be honest, I think Jim covered most of what we had spoken about. What's important to note architecturally is that as we have been squeezing this building to fit into the constraints of the site, specifically the no build zone, we've been adjusting the architecture accordingly to manage the areas that we need to keep intact for the design and feasibility of the project, both for the owner and also to comply with the site restrictions to the best of our ability so far. So as David had mentioned, we've been working with all of the other agencies in Watertown and taking their feedback and incorporating as much as possible into all of that. We've had a lot of positive review over the last 8 to 12 months or so. Most recently, we've gone through the developers conference, as some of you are probably aware, and Concom's comments have been tabled to this meeting. But we did go through architectural review with David Gamble, the town's architectural consultant, city's architectural consultant, to review the design concepts, materials, to show and see that they comply with the design guidelines for Watertown, and received very positive feedback from him.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if I might, Alan is too modest to tell you that he wears the same watchdog hat that all of you wear. He serves on the Sharon Conservation Commission. And I think that's an important part of his character and background, and the scope that he brings to these conservation issues. So that should be noted by the board, by the commission. Now, before we finish and open it up for questions, are there any concerns about traffic and parking? Because we don't have Jeff Dirk tonight, or we do?
No,
we don't.
Okay, but if there are any traffic and parking issues, then Jim and Alan Westman will address them. They're entirely familiar with the traffic impact assessment and the transportation demand management plan, which we have had vetted by Laura Weiner of the planning department, who is the traffic and parking specialist for the Department of Community Development and Planning. So bear that in mind. If you do have those questions, or the public, we're prepared to address those.
One item just to add to that, Steve, if you guys, on the plan that's up on your screen now, in addition to the submitted plan that you've reviewed, you'll note that there are several bike parking spaces that are located in the front of the building. I know that's not conservation or wetlands specific to the areas that we're trying to focus on, but to the point of open space and recreation, as well as that ties to traffic plans. Just wanted to point that out. It's actually 24 bicycle parking spaces have been provided. 20 of them are inside the building, and the rest are outside in front for commuters and visitors.
So with that, Mr. Chairman, we're prepared to get feedback from the commission, answer questions, and hopefully, this is a project that's a work in progress for us. We want the town to be satisfied. We think it's an outstanding project. And we think at the end, it's going to win the approval of the Conservation Commission.
Thank you. I appreciate your opportunity to have without constraints on us to give you comments and make those address those comments at the next meeting, probably, or whatever. I appreciate that forward-looking thought process. We don't always get that. So I can't see screens as usual. Do we still need to share the screen?
Yeah. Are you in full screen?
Yeah, I only see, I see a strip. That's okay. If that's what I just wanted to open up to our members. So maybe I just go in order. I see the sharing the screen, so I see it. So Jamie, do you have any comments?
Yeah, so well, first of all, it's really exciting to see that we'll gain some naturalized area and be able to reduce some of the impervious that close to the riverfront, to the, you know, the inner Chiclet area. I think one question, it's such a unique shape of the building, and so, and I'm sure you've given this a lot of thought already, but if you could share, like, because it looks, it's a little to see, there's kind of this triangle of space that's further away from the river because of the shape of the building. So like, can you talk about why you've chosen to orient and shape the building the way you have? Because it looks like, you know, theoretically, from like a geometry perspective, it could be pulled back even further, you know, where the building's closer to the river.
Sure, I can speak to the geometry of the building. So the form of the building comes out from a few items. One is through the design process and some of our early review meetings with the planning agencies, our informal meetings, we had a whole series of different tests and studies of various building types and varying heights and whatnot. So in one aspect, the shape of the building helps us to accomplish square footage that's needed to make the project feasible, economically viable for the partners. The other aspect, another aspect of this geometry of the building comes from our desire to recognize that Watertown's guidelines have some urban aspects, but this particular property sort of straddles, this location, I should say, sort of straddles that area between urban, which would really want a building to be completely up on Elm Street, and suburban, like we have across the street and some other properties. You know, subsequently, I know you can't see it on this plan, but across the street is Watertown Mall and a massive parking lot that some of the characteristics of this neighborhood, as we've talked with David Gamble too, start to talk a little bit more about suburban. So we're straddling that line. Part of the intent by pulling back portions of the building are to allow us to create some green space and some plaza space to invite pedestrians, users, building users in particular, so that they have a place to actually go outside of the building if they need to congregate or want to congregate, have a quick break, lunch, things like that. The other aspect of the geometry comes from the use or the desire to capture as much of the solar gain as we can. The entrance of the building, Jim, if you could put your cursor where the entrance of the building is. So that area all faces southwest. Elm Street is to the west, and this area is facing southwest. And this portion of the building and the northwest portion of the building are of a slightly different, more predominant design in character and glazing to help with our passive solar gain in combination with our active solar functioning panel design that's going to be up on the roof. Those are pretty much in a nutshell. I can go deeper, but I don't know how much architectural.
Yeah, I guess it just seems like the corner that's within between the 50 and the 100 foot, like that section seems like it would fit in that area that's currently the plaza. So if like all the green space was moved closer to the river, we would be, you know, maximizing the protection resource area. So it seems like to have the you know, some of the new green space at the furthest part of from, you know, in the riverfront area just seems off to me. But, you know, I'm sure there are a lot of constraints, but that's one thing that jumped out right away because of this pointed shape. It's like segmenting the green space. So it's preventing it from being contiguous, and it's making this northeastern corner being very close to the river when there's open space further back in the buffer.
Sure. Yeah. And so it's a great point, Jamie. And, you know, part of that is also driven by the parking layout that, you know, we worked really hard to get all of the parking below the building. Currently, I think it's the southwest corner of the property is the high point, and it drops down to that northeast corner, and it's about a 14-foot change. It's pretty significant, and what we've really tried to accomplish is from Elm Street, maintaining that 3-story building and have all the parking hidden from the main thoroughfare. By pulling the building further towards Elm Street, we start to get into a bit of a challenging compromise as well with our drainage, because as Jim had pointed out, we've got 3 drainage areas, and the one in the in the southwest area is where he's pointing to his cursor. But in order to maintain parking, you can see in the northwest corner, we've got underground parking there. So we're still limited to where we can maintain our drainage. So that's another factor that went to it. We're really trying to maximize as much as we can with the green space and still maintain, like I said, the footprint that we need to achieve the economical viability and the overall capacity that we can manage.
About 2/3 of the green space on the property is along the northerly property boundary. So we worked hard to try to get the building further south, and so that we can really create that space, naturalize it, as I mentioned in the presentation, with the high wildlife habitat value plants.
And then I think my other questions were maybe a bit more specific. So it sounds like this is perhaps more just like a preliminary discussion, but in terms of like when I was looking at each of the proposed catchments and trying to figure out how the drainage was working, I was having a hard time deciphering where the proposed drain lines connect into. I couldn't tell if there were like existing drain lines.
Right.
Sure,
So
I can address that for you.
It's very difficult to read one of your drawings because you left it's the utilities plan. You left all the existing utilities, overlaid them with the proposed, as well as the proposed building and the existing building. So I had to get my highlighters out to follow it all.
Well, I appreciate that. We'll make it a little more clear, and I no intention of not making it clear. Essentially what happens, we have relatively low amount of asphalt remaining on the property. It's a small section here, and then this piece of the entry drive into the garage. We're picking that up in a trench drain per the request of Matt Schuman, and that gets brought back into an infiltration area in the south. Most of the stormwater generated is from the roof, and that's generally considered to be a cleaner stormwater than asphalt pavement. So what we've done is to direct that roof drains, and there's some drains coming off this kind of a green roof, let's call it, into the 2 main infiltration areas here in the southwest corner and here in the northwest corner. So what's going to be important for us, just as we get into the more detailed building design, is making sure the areas are maintained, because that's how the drainage is based. So most of the discharge into these basins is from the roof. We do have a trench drain right here at this access way that would collect anything from this impervious area here and get that into the infiltration area as well.
So in the back part where there's the plaza, is that a vehicle access way or is that all pedestrian? Like I can see there's that like speckled, looks like a access way.
That's the main entry, the plaza.
It's pedestrian.
Pedestrian entry.
So it's only
vehicle
pedestrian.
entry is right here, leading down into the
I mean,
lower
is there any thought of like flipping the design of the building so that the vehicles would be entering back there and the plaza pedestrian area would be out front, closer to the resource?
You mean moving the entrance, the vehicle entrance to the north side?
To the south side.
It is on the south
It
side.
is.
That's the
Yeah,
What's the entrance on the north side then?
That's a-
emergency.
Emergency.
Oh, I see. Okay.
so this is an emergency access, fire truck access. This is back to the original plan that has been submitted. This is, so emergency deliveries. This is the main vehicle entrance. You know, the primary pedestrian access way is going to be from the south up Elm Street. And that's why we've centered the plaza here. So really to attract that pedestrian traffic, most of it's coming up from the south as opposed to coming down from the north.
Yeah, and I think my final comment was about the erosion control, that, you know, being so close to the riverfront area, a compost filter log may be preferable to the straw wattle.
We have no issue using those instead of the wattles. The compost filter logs, do you want the biodegradable casing? Because that can have some longevity issues, just in my experience. That's why we went with the wattles. I don't have any issue going with the compost filter logs, though, in our detail. Basically, the detail was the log, and we do like to include an orange construction fence just to keep people from driving over that stuff. We
Yeah,
can make
sure.
that change. No problem.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear the other commissioners' thoughts on that. I mean, I would think that the biodegradable may be preferable because, you know, then you don't have to worry about the plastic netting getting left behind. But, you know, as long as we have a plan to remove it when the construction's over,
Yep.
I think that could be used.
Patrick, you have a comment?
Yes,
You're up.
I'm very happy to hear that you and Steve Magoon and Laurel and the others who walked the site prior to this meeting did your best to reduce the impact on that 50-foot no-build zone. I still feel that even though as a human being dealing with other human beings and always wanting to say yes rather than no, I feel that since Watertown is not Sharon, and every single square foot of vegetated space, especially that adjoining wetlands, is particularly valuable to us who have so little, it's a pity to see any of it sacrificed to a development when it seems to me still negotiable. I know that I have no basis to argue that this development would fail if it were reduced by enough to spare the 50-foot no-build zone still impacted by the development. But just take cars alone. My colleagues have often heard me on this point. This is a new building. It's designed for the parking of a conventional nature, which we have today. But from what I hear about advances being made in automotive transport over the course of this building's foreseeable life, which is 50 years, 75 years, maybe, I don't know, there is the prospect of self-parking vehicles, which would take up far less space than the conventional striping for parking that is considered reasonable today, but may not be, say, in 5 years' time. So I'd just like to invite you in the design team to think of ways that particularly might reduce the parking space and thereby free up that space for the functions of the building where the people would be doing the work. That's really my main thought.
Thank you, Patrick. I still agree with you. I agree with you, Patrick. I'm with you. Okay, who's next? Charlie, you there?
I'm here.
Comments?
I I just have one question about the river. Have there been any incidents of flooding from that river? And I guess, I don't see any real issues with the design. I'm just wondering if that's a risk that you might be up against.
We don't see any water coming onto the property. It's not in a flood zone. There's a fairly substantial drop from here down to the water body on the order of 10 or 12 feet.
Okay, okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't know of any flooding there, Charlie.
Okay, you can't see that from the map, but.
No, I'm just talking
right,
from
yeah.
living.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's the only comment I had.
Okay, thank you. Maria?
Thank you, Chairman. So I'll start with Jamie's last comment about the straw wattles versus compost tube. I agree with her about compost tube. I like that you went with 36 inches in diameter because the 24-inch diameter sometimes gets rolled over, run over. I don't care whether it's biodegradable netting or not. I like in past projects of my own to just slice it, spread the compost when you're done, and pull the netting. Totally up to you guys, just as long as it gets removed and you can spread it. But if you don't want to spread it, then figure out how you want to handle it at the end, because it either would need to be removed or be appropriately spread around maybe the vegetation, so it could be a value at the end. Let's see. So I followed through to try and figure out what you were doing with all the infiltration systems, and was trying to figure out whether there was a new outfall. And so I could see that you did a pop-up emitter out of your eastern system. So that's great, because that's just going to be very passive and hopefully not even needed. But if you need an overflow, you have an overflow. Then your system, I'm sorry, I don't know the numbers. I didn't have time to memorize those, but the system closest to the emergency access way and closest to the Solwins Brook has a very small line of a PVC pipe that is going to go to that bank. And I didn't print every page, so I may have missed the details, but I didn't really see how that pipe discharges on that newly graded, quite steeply sloped area leading to the bank. And so hopefully that also doesn't need to be activated very often, but you have the elevation of that. What did I see? You have the elevation of that pipe. The water is going to preferably go to that pipe versus another pop-up emitter number 2 that you have, because of the elevation change. So instead of it trying to sort of evenly dissipate out, it's going to potentially want to go out that pipe that you have proposed, which is what is it? Install 12 inches HDP pipe at a 2% slope. I think that's, oh no, wait. I'm sorry, I'm reading very small lettering, but the invert, oh, here it is. Install 6-inch Schedule 80 PVC drain pipe, and that's from that system going out. So my main comment is, how do you have an appropriate like spillway there? How is that going to make sure that there's not going to be erosion on that steep slope there?
So both of the northwest system and the easterly system both have pop-up emitters for, if overflow purposes if required. The southwest system ties into the north, ties into this easterly system, so we don't require them here. All 3 of these systems are shown to have capacity below the invert of those pop-up emitter pipes under the 100-year event. So this would be some condition worse than the 100-year event where you might see some pop-up emitters. All of that being said, I'll take a look exactly where those things are so that we can make sure we resolve that concern of yours.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I'm misreading it. It looks like one tiny little line that might be a direct pipe outflow. and not a pop-up emitter out of the northeast system.
This system up in here?
Well, it's on the grading, paving, and drainage plan. I don't know if you
Yeah,
have that.
sorry about the quality of this. There is a foundation drain that comes around the building, of course, and we're showing a foundation drain outlet right up into this area. This line that I'm pointing to is a pop-up emitter discharge out of these infiltration galleries. And like I said, the elevation of that is above the 100-year elevation of the stormwater
Can you
inside.
switch the screen to show the grading and drainage plan? I think that would help.
Well,
with
this
this
is it. It's
conversation.
in the PowerPoint. I'm going to stop sharing if that's okay, and I'll go get that drawing and bring it in. Okay.
But that sounds good. But Jim, so basically you're saying there isn't a pipe overflow out of any of the systems, you're saying?
I thought I saw three. I thought I saw three pipes that were heading toward Max's property. That's what I thought I saw, but I couldn't find the drainage. It was very difficult to find drainage.
So how about if I stop sharing and I'll go get that drawing and we'll take a look at it.
Okay.
I mean, I looked for the drainage drawing. I said, "Where's my drainage drawing?" I couldn't follow. I'm glad you found it, Maria, because I couldn't find it.
It's sheet C9.1.
Yeah, okay.
I can go on to my other questions while he finds that, or should I just wait?
No, feel free to take them up in the order in which you want to feel.
As long as Jim can hear him.
I can hear. Are you seeing my screen now, or do I need to go back and share that?
Yeah, we
Go
don't
back
see
and share.
we see you.
Okay, so I think I can do that. I have that available here.
Bingo.
There it is. Okay, yes.
All right, so this is a culvert, this Schedule 40 PVC that goes over to a pop-up emitter in the back corner.
Right, and that's
So
fine.
we have a foundation drain right there that it's also gonna, you know, if that foundation drain discharges, that's where it's going. And then a second outlet right over here.
So you are, where does that outlet discharge to?
It would discharge to the ground. That would be the
And
foundation.
it slopes onto Max's property.
It's close to Max's property. It's the low point of our property.
Okay, and then if you go down to the infiltration galleries to your left, there's L-shaped pipes. It looks like L-shaped pipes that come out of the
Yeah,
gallery.
right there where your cursor is.
There's two of them,
Yes,
and those are doing the same thing.
they're pop-up emitters.
How do those work?
So if the they're naturally closed, there's pipes with essentially a movable cover to it that if the water built up to that elevation in the gallery, it would come out this pipe at a very low volume or rate, right? There's no real elevation pushing it, no head pushing it, and then it would emit onto the ground surface.
They're a little scary when you see them. They literally are like a little green plastic thing that pops up and it lets the water go out. But I wasn't sure where your cursor is right now. That is another pop-up emitter?
Yes.
Okay.
So I didn't know what those were. I just saw the two L-shaped pipes saying, oh, those outfalls. I couldn't tell what they were.
Okay, that answers my question. But still, you don't think those will be activated too often because the slope is very. Oh, what is the slope? That's one of my questions. What is the slope there? Because adding water on that steep slope just concerns me a little bit.
The grading or the pipe, ma'am?
The grading of your new grading.
This
there.
is about 3 to 1.
Ooh, not bad.
Yeah, that's pretty steep. Well, hopefully that any flow coming out of there is not going to be very often, you said?
Well, like I said, the maximum storage elevation inside the infiltration galleries is under the 100-year flood event is lower than the elevation of the pop-up emitter.
So can I know I have comments myself later on, but it's appropriate to this. What if we put a swale in there where these pop-ups are and put a swale so that they don't discharge to Max's property?
We could do that. You know, everything does discharge down there. We could bring something down into this low point and have it directed down there. Not an issue. What our thought was in terms of both the landscaping and the engineering was to do as much as we could to get this whole area naturalized and improve the habitat
It
value.
would still be naturalized. It'd be just a
Yeah.
swale,
We could do
like a
that.
bio swale or something.
Yeah.
How are these pop-up emitters like the real small ones that are like about 4 inches in diameter, or is this a big one?
These two are 6-inch diameter and this one's a 4-inch diameter.
Okay. All right, that answers my question. Now, my next question is because of your parking, which you explained earlier, which the footprint of your building is actually smaller than the footprint of your foundation because of your parking plan. We're correct, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So what my concern with that is has to do with the groundwater table. And I mean, it's applaudable that you've got all this wonderful subsurface infiltration, which is going to help with the phosphorus TMDL and, TSS and all of the stormwater requirements that Watertown is subject to. So that's all wonderful. You're taking uncontrolled runoff right now and controlling it in the best way that, we know how to try and mimic nature. So all that's great. What concerns me is that you nicely provided a groundwater table from Fuss and O'Neill in the stormwater report, which shows that you got groundwater, as low as like about 4 feet below the ground surface, maybe to 5 feet, and it might even be less than 4 feet in some areas. And then you've got your foundation that you're going to build, which presumably that's going to be well into your groundwater table. And yet you've got 3 pretty large systems that are supposed to infiltrate yet more rain into that area. And I'm just wondering, like, where is it really going to go? Have you thought about, like, could it impact the new residents in Marriott? Like, well, actually probably wouldn't, because it would all be going towards the Solwins Brook. But I'm just wondering how much infiltration you're really going to get, because you're creating impervious barriers around the entire perimeter of the building.
So the groundwater elevation, so we did a seasonal adjusted high groundwater elevation to about 19. The ground level of the garage is around 25. We expect the bottom of footings around 21, which is similar to the bottom of the infiltration gallery. We're providing 2 foot of separation. We know we need a waiver from the DPW guideline for that. The foundation drain would be around a 22.5 or so, because it'll be sitting on top of the footing. So we don't expect interaction between these infiltration areas and the foundation drains. Really, this entire site is, there's fill to varying thicknesses, and under that, it's an outwash deposit. So we anticipate that it will take the water, and we're not going to have an interaction to the foundation. One of the questions that Matt Schuman brought up in his initial review was about this particular area and that interaction, and we responded back. I hadn't heard from him yet, but we'll follow up with Matt. The other thing we're doing is wrapping these systems in a thick poly barrier, really to make sure that that doesn't happen. Once the water gets down into this, the underlying sand, we expect it to infiltrate without an issue and not affect the building.
I guess my main issue, or my point to bring that up is I'm wondering if those pop-up emitters may end up, that the systems may fill more quickly than you realize due to the fact that the water can't spread as naturally as it would. But maybe it will on off property to your east, I guess that would be, for that system on the backside. That was all I just see it in my job that sometimes an unintended consequence of putting these big systems in is that another person's property, particularly basements, get affected. But just something to keep in mind, if you feel like the system is designed appropriately and isn't going to impact, your own, obviously, foundation, and you can put an impervious barrier to protect your own foundation. I'm more worried about your neighbors, but hopefully the ground will just absorb it and carry it towards Solwins Brook.
That would be my expectation. The Jimmet building's located, 100, 200 feet away. So it's not like we have any, particularly residential foundations anywhere near us. The nearest ones are on the far side of the wetland system. We wouldn't expect any impact from our building to make it across the wetlands and over into the other side.
Right, no, okay. So it would be just that Jimmet building. Okay, all right, that answers that. And then my final question is, I noted that somewhere I read something about vinyl chloride, trace amounts of vinyl chloride still being in the ground associated with some TCE former spill or something, or an AST that may have had some leakage. Is there any concern about, I mean, I'm assuming that you wouldn't have proposed subsurface infiltration if there was any concern with lingering residual contamination.
That's correct. Yes. There's a monitoring well right about where my cursor is that detected a fairly low level of vinyl chloride above a reporting concentration. The prior owner filed what's called a downgradient property status. They don't, this property was not responsible for the presence of vinyl chloride there. They've also done tests with soil gas to see if the vinyl chloride is moving through soil gas and could get into a building, and they were all well below the state standards, which are quite low. And that's why we've located this infiltration area up here. And we wanted to keep it away from that southeast corner. There are other monitoring wells out there that have been tested without that problem. This really is the only one that's where it's been detected.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it, Maria?
Mhm.
So I have a few. Many of the comments you've already heard. So I was confused by some of the drawings, and I appreciate the conversation with Maria because that helped me a lot. But with regard to Jamie's idea of the building, and as well as Patrick's comments, I appreciate the attempt to move out of the 50-foot no-build zone, but I think I'd like to see more if we can. The fire department gets their way, the building department gets their way. I like to see the conservation commission get their way once in a blue moon. So doesn't happen very often. You know, we're usually the last to know. So I'd like to see that happen. As I said to you in our meeting, in my 23 years on the commission, we've never had more than one parking space of area in our 50-foot no-build zone, and that was in a permeable parking lot, and that was in the loft department. That's in the lofts. I think Steve, you said you might have worked on that one. So
you know, I want to put this out because I had started this conversation when we met with you, Leo. There is a natural tension between the vision of the RUMD and those portions of our town that are redeveloping what used to be one of the most industrialized, 4 square miles in the United States. Right. And it puts in tension some of the desire for conservation to simply draw a line in the sand and say, no, we cannot give up an inch of riverfront or and particularly in the 50-foot no-build zone. Now, I understand that that line can be drawn properly and should.
I think I helped you out drawing it properly.
Yeah, no.
And saved you some money.
I'm sorry?
It saved you some money. You didn't have to redo it. You didn't have to reflag it. Okay, go ahead. Aside.
No, I'm sorry. What?
Your flags were in the original submittal. The flags were over 5 years old, and you were able to buy it from Max. Saved you some time.
I'm not quite sure. I mean, Jim can address that. Okay. My understanding, though. No, my understanding, and this is actually an important point. I want to start with the philosophic discussion. More and more of these projects will be coming before you, because the town actually, by its acceptance of the notion of the RUMD and its own important policies, its future vision for the community, are going to raise these issues about conservation's appropriate role. And if conservation simply says, we will not tolerate anything that impacts any of these sites that are protected, you will in fact be cementing in these degraded sites because they will not be economically feasible.
I don't think we're asking you to stop the building. I
No,
think we're
okay.
asking you to see if you can
No, I
help
wasn't.
us out and meet our requirements. And Steve, I know
Leo,
our mud came up, but
we're not
come on,
disagreeing.
this is our requirement, not our mud. You have to meet all the requirements in the town. I mean, this is
No,
part of the
I'm
development.
not disagreeing with you.
Okay.
I'm agreeing. Look, Leo, I was the chairman of the planning board. Alan Westman sits on the Conservation Commission in town.
And I like to talk to him about artificial fields too.
So, I mean, I am simply raising what I'll call the philosophic dilemma of going forward with a town that's committed to a vision that's going to put these things in conflict. I would suggest that the process we're both following is exactly correct.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate that.
And we are listening very intently tonight to the comments and suggestions and criticisms.
Yes.
And we will come back and try to sharpen the design more and more to try to get everything that we can removed that impacts negatively the wetlands.
Okay.
But I think,
and I started out the meeting by saying that.
I think it's been acknowledged by yourself and other members of the commission that this design has gone a long way to really trying to, meet the policies that the Conservation Commission is committed to protecting. And we just ask you to be sensitive to the fact that at a certain point, the building may not be economically feasible, and we are trying to comply as best as we can. So with that having been said, what we would desire is to come back for another preliminary meeting with you and with Laurel and with any other members of the commission that want to sit in on that. And we will come back with revisions that reflect addressing the concerns raised tonight. And
that'll be the
we'd
next
like
meeting.
to do that ideally. We'd like to do that ideally before the next potential hearing of the commission, which it would be in.
Nothing is official unless it's in front of an open public meeting. So
Yeah, no, I understand. So the next possibility would be the January cycle. But I want the commission also to understand that I have made a commitment, a promise to Steve Magoon, and Laurel was present for this. We will not be going forward before planning or zoning until we satisfy these conservation issues.
I'm
So
aware of that.
you should understand
I'm aware of
the
that.
commitment to doing that.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Can I ask a quick question, a follow-up to that? It appeared to me, and although Alan did not answer it this way when Jamie asked the question, but the shape of the building partly, although all those other issues that you mentioned, Alan, must obviously apply, but part of the shape of the building on the northern edge has to do with the fact that you particularly were you stayed out of the no-build zone with the building.
Correct.
Okay, so the only thing that remains inside the no-build is it looks like a little bit of a retaining wall and some emergency access, which it looked like you tweaked from what I see on our plans, although I really can't, it looks like a new revisions.
They did.
That's
They made further revisions
It's not as much as it used to be.
to pull it even further back. And that emergency access drive, I believe, is permeable pavers, at least, proposed here in that hatched area.
Correct.
Maria, originally, when we first met, the wetland flags were further away from where they are now. They had an outdated plan. And so they ended up purchasing Max's plan, or somehow getting Max's plan. I'm not sure how you got it, but you got Max's delineation that we just approved last year. And so the flags were off by a number of feet. So it impacted the number of feet into the property, further into the property. So I think that probably upset the apple cart from the original design.
Correct.
So Leo, I really need to interject something. First of all, the mistake was ours.
No, I'm not pointing.
No, we own that it was a mistake. I need to start with that.
I'm just trying to give my members a little history, that's all. They weren't
Oh,
aware of
no,
all
I
this.
No, I didn't think you were casting aspersions, but
Okay,
it was totally without any intent.
Right.
So the line that we used, which was Max's line, as you put it, would have been more conservative, more liberal to us, let's put it that way. And it would have actually demonstrated that almost virtually nothing is within the protected wetlands if that line was accepted by the board. Now, the board has its own line, and we've now presented plans that use that line. But this is a very important point. I understand that the commission does not want to set a legal precedent for this case that's now going to be used in other cases that are not as what I'll call compelling.
Correct.
And that, right? So,
Correct.
but I want to make this point. We had people measure that line independent of Max's plan. And in fact, the line is more liberal to us. And if the commission were to decide this case, this is important as a lawyer, if the commission were to decide this case on its merits factually about the line being more liberal to us, however you come about it, you have new measurements taken. If we're right, this will not be a precedent for any other cases. It will be factually supported by the line that is more liberal to us and would take everything virtually out of the no-build zone.
Agree. Okay, thank you. But I just want to make, we spent a lot of time on that delineation done by Max. We had our own consultants come in. And so we didn't just accept that delineation that was done in 2019. We had our own consultant do a delineation as well. So there was not just one firm that did it. We had our own firm do it too. So
Jim,
are there two lines we're talking about? Because to write the order of conditions, we need to know what line we're approving. So if it's not that ORAD, if it's something different, we need to know.
They're using the ORAD line.
They're using the ORAD line that we agreed to with Max.
Over a year ago.
Got it.
Jim,
I just wanted to make sure.
I need Jim to jump in. Jim can explain, our measurements were not identical.
No, I know they were.
No, not identical to Max's plan either. The most recent measurements, Jim can speak to that. And I need him to speak to it. So Jim, can you hear me? Jump in. Now's your moment.
Okay. Yeah, so we saw this line here from about where my cursor is back to the head wall. And you can see the bank is on behind the top of the head wall. We sent a wetland scientist out who thinks it more mimics what's happening on the north side. And it's a little bit further away from our property, another 8 or 10 feet in spots over about a 70-foot section. All that being said, this line is the ORAD line unadulterated. But we think it in this particular section where it really affects this area the most, it's quite conservative to the high side. I recognize, and we were told that there was quite a few, quite a long time, and other consultants involved with this particular line. But that's where we had the question, and I'll just leave it at that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
I think the only point I wanted to make is that any lines that have not been presented to us, it's really irrelevant because we can only make decisions based on what's submitted in the NOI.
Right. So those lines are what we approved in 2019.
Yes, sir.
We'll leave it at that. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Okay, so I would like to see us work on the 50, and I appreciate you if you whatever you can do. So
Leo, can I just make one more quick comment for them to consider? The way that you've got all these different buffer lines shown on the screen right now, just a suggestion, but I think, and maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but the 50-foot no build line, that curves right there, isn't that 50-foot partly because of the bank and maybe it should be truncated right at the head wall? Or is it the 50-foot?
It goes to the head wall. Oh, 50 foot, it's a radius. It's not like the 200-foot riverfront. It's a radius.
I understand. Let me just explain what I'm trying to convey. They zoomed in too much, but the 50-foot no build zone line follows the wetland line, and then it appears to then pick up at the bank. And to me, the bank ends when you get to the head wall. So I feel like it should be truncated where it becomes perpendicular. Yes, right?
The
Where it
50 foot, it's not like a 200-foot waterfront, how they truncate it. It's a 50-foot radius from the wetlands, radius.
Right, but once it goes into a
On our ordinance.
okay, just the way I do it where I work. As soon as you've got a body.
This is Watertown's ordinance.
Okay, maybe I will take this offline with you, Leo, because
Okay.
when you have a culvert, a body of water that goes under a culvert, there is no wetlands associated with it. That's how the wetlands regs work. Once that body of water is culverted, your lines become truncated at that head wall. That's how I understood the Wetlands Protection Act to work, but I am less familiar with our own, aspects of the 50-foot no build as it relates to our local ordinance. So I'll double check that.
Okay. I think they've got it drawn correctly. With regard a drainage drawing we talked about already, I'd like to see an actual drainage drawing. I had really a lot of trouble with it, but I guess we went through most of it, Jim. So.
And what was that, Leo? I'm sorry.
I really had trouble with the drainage drawing. I was so confused, I couldn't follow the line. So if we had a clarification on the drainage drawing. And the overflows, I thought they were discharging to Max's property. I know the stormwater ordinances we supposed to maintain on site. So if we put a swale in that area, I think we could discharge those pop-ups to a swale and still be wooded because landscaped. It's up to you.
Okay.
I don't want to discharge at the neighbor's property if we didn't have to.
We can address that, no problem.
I had a question on the garage. The garage, called it a garage. So, and you said it earlier in your presentation that the drainage goes to the sanitary system. Did I hear it correctly?
Yes, sir.
So how does the porous pavers on the outside parking get separated from have you graded them differently?
Yeah, think of it as a hard line between concrete and the porous asphalt over here. And we've hatched this. Basically what happens, this area gets encapsulated in the units over here get encapsulated in plastic with the rechargers that we had shown.
Yep.
The grades on this parking space are essentially flat. Yep. And there will be grades going from in the garage. It will be designed by the plumbing engineer.
Yep. So
that any kind of free liquid on the floor would drain into a system, go to an MDC trap, and then get pumped out into the
so there'll be like a high point right where those parking spot entrance.
Essentially, that's right.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I was confused how that would be separated. I wasn't sure when I first saw it. I think in your O&M plan, you mentioned stockpiling of snow within 150. We have a thing about stockpiling snow within 150 feet of the wetlands, and it's in our order. So just so you know, it's in your O&M plan that you're going to stockpile snow somewhere, and I just want to let you know we don't allow it within 150 foot of the wetlands. And then I was looking in the stormwater report, and I didn't see any boring logs. I didn't see any groundwater measurements. So I was kind of figuring out how you got to 19 foot when I couldn't see any water level readings anywhere. And so I would like to see some geotechnical data.
Sure, should have been in there. I apologize.
I didn't see it. I only saw on the boring log was only like 1 page of 3, or there was 2 of them.
Yeah, we can provide that.
So I would just like to see it so I can figure out myself how you got up to a water level of, I think you said your maximum water level is 19, groundwater level for your infiltration gallery?
Yes.
And it just showed a straight line across at 18 in the profile.
Right.
I was confused by that as well.
Okay.
The profile sort of only went halfway across the site. I know you're relying a lot of information on from a butter as well.
Yeah, there's a whole series of monitoring wells over on this property to the east.
But do you have water level readings for them for the full year, the spring?
Yeah, so what we did was we looked at a couple of years of their data, compared it to water level readings on our property.
Okay.
Found the highest from theirs, added it to the water level reading on ours at the time, and that was the adjustment that we came up with, 1 foot.
Okay, so I just like to see that. I mean, I don't think it was in there, and it's just like, to me, there was not a comment that the groundwater flow on the site, on your site would be to the southeast. And I with Solomons Brook right there, I find that hard to believe. I would think it would go to the north. Just, experience, that's all. But I don't know. I mean, you have the data, so I haven't seen it. So maybe it does flow that way. To me, I would think it would flow to the natural break, which is a stream. And that's all my comments. And it's much harder to see electronically than it is in paper, as we discussed earlier.
Yes, sir.
So that's all. I think that's it for us, for our comments.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As I said, we're going to be going back to the drawing board, and we would really like an opportunity to meet ahead of whatever the next formal meeting is in January. We'd like to meet ahead of time.
Okay.
With as many members of the commission as want to.
We can't be more than 3.
So, okay, whatever.
Then we'd have to have a public hearing.
Okay, so whatever that would require, we'd ask that get done. So I need to make this clear. We will be filing our special permit application next week, but I have made it clear to Steve Magoon and the planners that we're not going to go forward until we resolve to the satisfaction of the Conservation Commission these issues. So we will continue our hearings before them in the hopes that in the next month or so, we'll be able to satisfy the commission that this is the best possible project for an area that's, obviously impacted by the wetlands and needs protection. Period. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Sounds good. Just, contact me about timing and.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you so much.
Thank you all. Enjoy your evening.
Do we need to take a vote that we continue the hearing?
Yep.
Yeah, you do.
So
So are you guys requesting that we continue the hearing?
Yes, we are.
thank you.
So
Um,
do you want me to make the motion that we continue?
Yes, please.
So motion made to continue the notice of intent for 23 Elm Street so that further refinements can be made on the drawing plans.
Second.
We have to do a roll call. That was seconded by Patrick, right?
Me.
I did.
Oh, no, Charlie did it. Charlie did it. So roll call, Laurel.
Maria,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Charlie,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
and Leo.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Great, thank you.
It looks like a good project.
very much.
Don't get me wrong. It looks like a good project.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thanks
that.
very
Yeah,
much.
Good work.
appreciate it.
Take care.
Okay, next item is the minutes from October 7th, and just so you're aware of it, Susan's still out, so Laurel is struggling here, and so we only have 1 meeting minutes to go through, but she's working hard to get the others moving along. So if you bear with her
Yeah.
just until we get, Susan back or something happens, so just,
Exactly, thank you.
No problem.
so does anybody have any comments on the October meeting? Oh, geez. I guess that's a no. Nobody's moving. Everybody awake?
Patrick sent me his comments.
Yeah,
I have one. And that's, we missed Patrick's name on those
Yeah.
members present.
Yeah, sorry, Patrick caught that one, so.
Ah, that was your comment, Patrick?
I'm good.
And I didn't have any others. So if we can have a motion to accept the meetings as amended, I'd appreciate it.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Jamie seconded. A roll call, Laurel again.
Patrick,
All right.
Jamie,
Yep.
Maria,
Yes.
and so I guess Charlie, yeah, 'cause you, sorry. I was writing your name and I forgot that.
And
Never
I'm
mind.
good with it.
And Leo.
Yes.
Great.
The next item on the agenda is the letter that Patrick has drafted nicely to send to the Mount Auburn Cemetery. And I think if you know, it's just a base, this is on the amphibian study. So did anybody have any comments on the letter?
I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance to read that.
Okay. Anybody else? I mean, I think the letter's fine as is. It was well written. I mean, Patrick writes very well, so. I guess as long as we can have a vote to send this along.
One thing I could add, Leo, is with regard to the future scheduling of these reports from the cemetery.
You have it in, you want it in December, right?
I think I don't have the text before me, but I did make a note here that says in revise the last paragraph, first sentence with a new beginning, in coming years. In other words, what we're asking for this year is obviously impossible because we asked for it in time for our first meeting of December. That's not going to happen. So
Right,
Well,
okay.
You say the end of November, so, okay, with those, if you make those changes and get it to Laurel, can we have a vote to send this out?
Yes, so moved.
Okay, second,
Second.
Charlie, okay, a roll, another vote there, Laurel, you're a roll.
Okay, sure. Jamie,
Yes.
Charlie,
Aye.
Maria,
Yes.
Patrick,
Aye.
and Leo.
Yes,
And if I have anything after I read it, can I send it too?
yes.
Well, Leo, that letter is to go with two
Attachments.
attachments. Yes,
Attachments,
yes.
correct.
The blank data forms for
Yep.
future use.
You have those, Laurel, right? Yep.
I believe so, and if I don't, I will bother Patrick.
No, they're on there.
But I should have them.
They're on the email, so I mean, if you don't
Yeah.
have them, they're on, Patrick forwarded them, I have them too. So the next item is an attaboy to Charlie. He completed the MACC courses, and he got a certification that went to Mike Driscoll. So
Yeah.
I think I saw the town council meeting. They were gonna do something or say something. They didn't do it the last meeting, so maybe this week. But
Well, I still have to file my claims for reimbursement, so I hope everyone.
some of the money.
Me too. I have one more to take and then I'll have all 8. So.
Oh wow, good! Wow, that's fantastic.
That's really impressive.
Oh.
I questioned once how many more I had to go, and they said a lot. I kept on taking soils classes and other classes, and they said, "Oh, you got a long way to go, pal." I said, "Okay." But congratulations, Charlie. That's very good. That's great.
I don't know if right now is a good time, but what I was talking about might be better with the buffer zone. I know it's come up in MACC classes that we have taken, at the conferences.
Yep.
How that buffer zone is drawn. And to me, some of the buffer zones that they drew look more in our favor than their favor. So, and the reason I brought it up is because you guys were really hammering them about the building and the no build. And
Yes.
they're basically, I mean, I know it's tough because there's probably in my years here, one place where I really do wish we did ask for more. And you never know what that line is of how much to ask or not ask. But I really also think that we, have to follow what our rules are.
Yeah, and it's a 50-foot radius from the edge of the wetland. So they hit the edge of the wetland and they just went 50 feet. So I thought they had drawn it properly. Unlike
what-
the 200-foot waterfront that goes directly to the place where it goes underground.
The river,
the
right?
bridge.
curves up oddly to me.
Yeah, but I
As
think it
a-
was, Marie, I think it was drawn right. I think it was a 50-foot radius circle from that point, which would be the end of the abutment.
Let's look into it and circle back just in the interest of time.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
it is getting late, sorry.
yeah. So I was just trying, I wasn't trying to be confrontational with them. I just want to let you guys know that they originally submitted a plan. We can't talk about it. We close the hearing. So I think I said it. We won't go through with it. So let's go to the agent report.
Okay. First thing would be if Maria has any updates on CPA.
We're still working on the CPA plan.
Okay. Okay. This is not on the agenda, but because I forgot, but I wanted to give Jamie an opportunity to say something about the pollinator efforts, because it sounds like she and Pam had a good conversation on Sunday with a few people that run sort of a youth employment program that educates students and sort of employs them installing pollinator gardens on, I think, private properties. And she had asked me whether Watertown has any sort of youth employment programs already. And what I've gleaned so far is that DPW does hire some summer help, I'm assuming for sort of maintenance type and landscape type work. And the recreation department also hires roughly 100 seasonal people, mostly high school and college age people during the summer athletic season. So it's not that those would both be, necessarily a perfect fit for the ideas that you and Pam had, but it is something that departments do, and there might be some collaboration opportunities. But if you want to very briefly describe the conversation you had.
Yeah, sure. So Pam and I talked with, sorry, I'm blanking on last names, but Jean and Barbara from the Meadowscapers for Biodiversity group, and they're operational in a number of surrounding communities. I think they said in Cambridge, Waltham, maybe even in Newton. So Maria, I don't know if you have familiarity with them, but essentially their general model is that they run these, they call them YEEP programs, so Youth Entrepreneurial Environmental Program. And so when they have these YEEP programs, the students would come on for like a spring into summer and get education on both an entrepreneurial basis of how to kind of run your own little business, as well as educating on the importance of pollinators. And then they would go and kind of, I think Barb and Jean were, they were the ones that would more kind of like design the garden or kind of make recommendations of what plants to put where, but then the students would be in charge of kind of sourcing the plants and selling the plants and planting and maintaining the gardens. So in some of the communities that already have youth employment programs, the town will like hire the students, and then the meadowscaping program would be one place that those students could then go work. But she did mention that, for example, in Belmont, they had some more scaled down initiatives that was more, a series of planting events to tackle an invasive problem at the Belmont Women's Club and then do some plantings after. So I think there is kind of a range of options of what this type of program could look like. So I think we decided the first step was figure out what Watertown has in terms of youth employment, and if would it be possible to have any of those students be part of this program, and then kind of based on that figure out how much funding we need, because it sounds like there's funding needed to pay the students, there's funding needed for materials, and then maybe some funding needed to support the small, like, permanent staff of meadowscaping for biodiversity. So, we all felt that by talking about this now, it was enough time to plan for the upcoming growing season. And so we're just trying to figure out what it would look like, where we would get funding from, where we would get resources from, and then what sites in Watertown would be good. So they can do, we could do a whole bunch of, I know Laurel said you might be able to pull together an inventory for us of public sites. They also will have students go work on private sites. So like in some of these other towns, in addition to kind of the flagship sites, though, they also will have just residents who are saying, oh, I would like a pollinator garden in my yard. And then the students will go and do the garden from them and, work out. They'll pay the students, they'll buy the, or pay the organization, buy the plants from them. That's kind of where like some of that entrepreneurial training comes in for the students.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the DPW hires students, as you said, and usually they work for Bob DeRico. And one spot
Right.
would be they could plant a pollinator garden between the light poles that you're trying to design. That would be the first spot, I would think. But
Yeah.
we'd have to work that out with Bob, and maybe, I don't know how we work that out with Bob, but
Yeah, that can be definitely a way to go. So it sounds promising. It might be more reasonable to sort of start with some more like one-off volunteer opportunities and then build up to a more of a bigger sort of program. But yeah, great. Thank you for that, Jamie.
Excuse me for one moment. Under CPA update, I did want to say one thing. My term as the appointee from our Conservation Commission is coming up in February 1st, January 31st or February 1st, and I do not think I'm going to renew my term. So if you all could be thinking about which one of you would like to take a turn, I just feel like I don't have enough time to devote to this and everything else that's going on in my life.
I can understand that. You're still working.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work, but I just feel like I need, I'd like to take a step back from that role. If somebody didn't want to commit to a whole 3-year term, I may want to roll back on, because the fun part is about to begin, giving out the money. But getting through this planning process and public engagement has been a long, tedious haul.
It has been tough. I agree with you. It's been tough. So we can put that in the agenda for next month, if that's what you'd like to do. Okay. Thank you, Maria. And by the way, thank you for doing all that finance stuff with the group. I know it's been a lot of work, because I've gone to most of the meetings, so I know what you put into it.
You're here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
like I said, I might want to roll back on, but right now I really, just especially with the pandemic, I need to. You can see how much paperwork is behind me. I mean, I'm swimming. I'm swimming in paperwork.
Okay, Laurel.
Yeah. So then just some brief updates on ongoing orders of conditions. I think we've talked plenty about Arsenal Park tonight, but you all got the monthly construction update on phase A. Not a whole lot has happened this month, just because of some waiting for some materials to be delivered and things like that. But the base materials and forms for the stairs that come up on either side of the sort of knoll or small hill have been installed, and excavating and forms similarly were installed for the stairs along the eastern boundary of the park that will link up to Arsenal Yards development over there. May have mentioned this at a previous meeting, but in walking the site, particularly when you come up on that raised little hill area, there might be an opportunity for some vista pruning on the slope that leads down towards Greeno Boulevard, because there's a lot of like vines and invasives, and it looks quite not only sort of unkempt, but it also could provide a really nice view corridor to the river itself. if we sort of strategically were to prune to still obfuscate the view to the boulevard, so you're not confronted with a street, but yet you can see, you know, when you're atop that hill, you can see out to the water. That would be really, really nice. So to that end, perhaps Leo and Patrick could accompany me on sort of a site visit to look at that, and maybe we can bring the tree warden along with us, because he and DPW would likely be the ones to carry that out.
Oh,
So
wait a minute. We have a tree warden?
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. He grew up in Watertown too.
Who?
Oh, his name is
Gre-
Greg Mossman. He
Yeah.
was Boston's tree warden for a long time, and he's supposedly excellent. So
Oh,
You can see him. He's been written up in Boston. He's really done quite a good job.
oh, that's the best thing I heard tonight.
And he grew up.
Yeah.
He grew up just down the street. He grew up just a few streets over. Well, he grew up in Wilmot.
Oh, I'm thrilled. It was
Yeah.
such a loss to
yeah,
you
yeah.
guys 2 times, so that's great.
hmm hmm
He's been around for about a month and a half, 2 months, 2 months maybe. And we have
Yeah.
we have a new DPW chief too, I think.
We do.
Yep.
His name escapes me, but I think he has a really great background.
Yep. I saw his resume, and it looked really fantastic.
You mean to replace
Yeah.
me?
Yeah, Jeremy resigned, retired.
Retired.
Yes.
Yeah,
That is
so
the
it's
reason
an
I retired.
exciting new hire.
Very good news. Very good.
So yeah, so if that
Let us
sounds
know when
like a
you
good
want to come
idea,
back and
we can schedule that.
Yep.
Yeah, great. Arsenal Yards, the pedestrian connection sort of leading up to the entrance to Arsenal Park, sort of in the Phase A area, is complete. It looks quite nice. And they're still preparing their final plans for the final building that abuts the eastern edge of the park. 330 Pleasant, the Water Mills building, work is totally finished on the eastern building, and they've applied for a temporary certificate of occupancy for that, and all of the landscaping is also complete. The western building is almost finished, but not quite, so there's still work ongoing there. And then 650 Pleasant, the minor landscape work at the back of the site, as well as, you know, the landscaping throughout, has been completed. There's sort of a issue they're working on with the town, with one of the chiller pads and the generator being potentially too close to an easement, a DPW easement. So
Like over the pipe, like over the pipe.
yeah, potentially. So they're working on how to address that. It could
Along with all the fill that's over the pipe. Okay, I'll bite my lip, because it's not a conservation issue.
No, but just so you know, that's where they stand.
Have they been told to stop work?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
The issue, I mean, they're there.
They're already on. They're installed. Yeah. Right. All the chillers. If this is right adjacent to Stop and Shop. So if you look at the Stop and Shop, there's a 5 or 6 feet of fill, and there's a flat spot, and then they have the air conditioning units, they have the emergency generator, and they have something else all over a town drain line.
So
Okay.
that's in process, but
Yep.
you know, so that's all I have.
Okay.
That's enough for one night.
Well,
yeah.
I don't know if you can see who's here, but Lisa Feltner has been here all night. So thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Don't want to drag it on longer, but do we know any more about the new Conservation Commission member?
So I still haven't heard back. I've been sending Councilor Piccarelli a message about when does DPW subcommittee meet. So, because there's 3 of us that our terms have expired, plus the new member. who has to go through that subcommittee before the town council votes on our reappointments. So I bugged him. He said soon, but I haven't heard from him. Lisa, you're not the DPW subcommittee, are you?
I am not, and there's already a meeting ahead of that in December, so I don't know. Hopefully he could fit it in December.
Oh, I hope so.
But we have a joint.
Because we have a
meeting.
new member on there waiting. We're waiting for a new member, and she's been
Yeah, that would
waiting
be
since
awesome.
March. So
Can I
go
ask
ahead.
2 quick questions?
Sure.
Congratulations to Charlie. I look forward to the formal congratulations by town council.
Yeah.
And hopefully you'll put the pollinator on a future agenda so the public would know. That's a lot of great information.
Yeah,
And-
I
You know,
hope.
we usually have it on there as an item, but we forgot to put it on this time. We'll put it on again.
Well, to be
And
honest,
if anyone wants to come by my house, I put a pollinator garden in our new planting strip because we got sidewalks in May.
Oh, cool.
So I
Oh,
did
good for
that.
you.
And curbs too?
No,
No curbs?
but can you just say, Patrick, what was the letter for from Mount Cemetery? Mount Auburn, I just didn't hear what it was.
So Patrick's been working. Oh, go ahead, Patrick. You tell her.
Yeah, well, Mount Auburn Cemetery has been partnering with the state fish and game, fisheries and game people, and ourselves, of course, to reintroduce or introduce for possibly the first time a number of amphibians to the cemetery, to the wetlands there, particularly the Dell Pond. That's the consecration dell under the tower.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a true vernal pool. It has been, we think, forever, ever since there was a pool there. Probably it's an old glacial kettle hole in the ground.
Cool.
And it had supported
Watertown.
an outstanding population of spotted salamander, which is one of these so-called obligate amphibian species. It has to have a temporary pool. In the case of the Dell Pond, it's not exactly temporary, but it's isolated enough from fish so that the animals can breed there successfully from year to year without their eggs and the larvae getting eaten by fish. To that assembly, that particular population, the cemetery has added no fewer than 3 other amphibian species, none of which is entirely obligate, meaning that they have to have an ephemeral pool, but they do they breed in conditions that are favorable to them in the Dell Pond, and the American toad is in fact capable of breeding in many other different waters. So it has begun to breed now in 3 of the other ponds in the cemetery. Because all of this represents what might be considered in the Wetlands Protection Act an alteration of wetland by introduction of species that could conceivably impair the survival of the original vernal pool species, which is an obligate species. Studies are necessary, and consultants have been hired by the cemetery to conduct regular monitoring of all of the populations, both the spotted salamander, the original inhabitant, and these other 3 species. The red-backed salamander, which is a terrestrial species, also has just been the subject of an introduction there. It is not really subject to our jurisdiction, except in the sense that we are concerned about the natural resources everywhere in town, not just those in wetlands. But we don't have such, you might say, strong jurisdictional responsibility for what happens to them. The redback salamander happens to have an existing natural population on Whitney Hill, which makes it only one of 2 other places in town. Coolidge Hill School, I think, is the other one. Or that may not even be in Watertown. Anyway, that's the situation. So we have been trying to design a series of summary data tables that can be produced every year by the consulting biologist for the cemetery, to keep us abreast as the responsible custodians of all of these biotic resources over the years. And we now have come up with 3 summary tables that do that job in conjunction with a report that the cemetery has agreed to prepare for us every year on the basis of the findings of their own consultants. So that report is one which we hope will serve not only the responsibilities of the Conservation Commission, but also whatever the Board of Overseers at the cemetery wants to know about what's going on in the cemetery, other than human remains. Yes, the living system at Mount Auburn Cemetery is worth celebrating on its own right, as you all know. It's just a wonderful place, and to help it recover some of its probably forsaken natural resources, like these amphibian species, really is cheering. We've now set up an outline for the cemetery to prepare a report every year with the preparation of three summary reports as backup data for whatever the findings may be from year to year. So that's what we're now.
That is so cool. I was going to make a joke, but that actually reminds me, with some of your ideas of boulders in Arsenal Park. You know how in the Charles River they have the etchings on some of the stones of the natural wildlife you find in the Charles River? That'd be really cool at Arsenal Park. So I just throw that idea out there with the place, or have amphibian sculptures to play on. But I know it's a long night, and thanks for indulging me, but that's fascinating and great to see everybody. Happy post-Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you. Oh, I need a motion. I guess I need a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Oh, second?
Second.
A roll call, I think, Laurel.
Okay, Jamie,
Hi.
Charlie,
Hi.
Maria,
Aye.
Patrick,
Hi.
and Leo.
Thank you. Thank you all. I know we went a long time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Hey.
Good night, everybody. Thank you again.